Hey everyone. Hey everyone. I'm just here making sure that. Let me see. Sorry guys. I was not trying to have you guys hear all the clicking and clacking. My bad, y'all. Don't know what a stream bitrate means. I wish I knew. Alright, we're just gonna start drawing. I'm gonna put some videos and stuff in the background because I want to hear. There's some YouTube videos that I'm trying to see while I am drawing. So we're gonna listen to One Piece theories as well as drawing. Hope that's cool with everybody.
Nina just built an app. Impossible. Pigment can't code. Interesting.
Let me make sure that you guys can hear me on stream. Cool, it's working.
I gotta say, I'm pretty hyped for it, honestly. But I do think that he might carry a dark revelation in the wake of his arrival too, so don't get too hyped. There's a good chance that Loki, I think, will become a demon. Now, honestly, I kind of think that he might need to for the story to still work going forward until
All right.
Olaf is just gonna end in like a the scale Oda chose for this dude, it kind of feels too big almost, right? You know what I mean? Like, how can Loki even maneuver around? But hey, I accidentally nailed it in my recent Loki Dragon hybrid form thumbnail. Huh? Totally got that one on my first try. Honestly, I just kind of went with black in that one because I thought it looked pretty gnarly. And hey, turns out we might have called it though. Who knows? If we get the official coloring, it might be something else. But looks pretty black to me. The black scales are pretty sick, and they definitely kind of embody that Nidhogg role that it seems to be inhabiting, right? Which, while it's not confirmed because we don't get a fruit name yet, ZP Oda, why not? We can all agree now that that's that, right? Especially now that we see the design isn't too far off the original Nidhogg Dream Monster we saw. Yeah? Alright, sick, cool. Now, I do think we need to get into the thing that I'm struggling to really wrap my head around here. I'll be honest, I was a little bit worried about making this specific video today because I really don't want to come across like the classic YouTube contrarian, you know, just doing it for the game. As you know, I'm usually pretty positive on the channel, but sometimes I do have to address the unsavory answers too, and just, you know, get some things a little bit in order in my own head too, because to be completely real with you, while I do think what I'm about to say is very crucial for the story, I personally would be very happy if there were some solution to the problem I'm having here. But for now, I have to address the gigantic dragon in the room. Loki needs to get possessed by evil now, right? Right? Like, I just cannot see any world where Loki doesn't forcibly become a villain here because he is too big, too strong, and straight up breaks my entire understanding of the power structures in the series, which were already on like a little bit of a freaky, you know, tightrope walk. What a weird word. Tightrope. Anyway, you know what I mean. So again, I don't want Loki to be evil, and clearly we know that he isn't a bad person by nature, which is great. Still very much on the Loki for Straw Hat train that I think I'm the only one on. But considering that he can destroy the Holy Knights, is bigger than entire islands we've been to, and even was already trying to recruit Loki through Shamrock, I'm kind of starting to think that in the next few chapters we'll see our dear boy Loki become a bad man, not by choice, but by Nomi Reversi. You know, thanks to little evil dark magic. So, why do I even think that this needs to happen from a story perspective? What weird juice am I drinking again that makes me go...
My journey to trading, like that learning curve, has exponentially just got a lot shorter. The stuff that I'm learning, that they're teaching me, I don't think I would learn this in a long time. So I love it. And those 3.
Yes, this chapter proves that Loki shall become a mega villain, and you know, don't get it twisted, I don't think it should happen. I think it might need to happen, because if it doesn't, Oda is like treading into some really, really murky waters for scales and just overall stakes in the series. Like, I think he knows what he's doing, but just, you know, from this chapter and without knowing what the next chapter will be, especially with a week break in between, just kind of insane. Alright, what do I mean by that? Well, let's just look at Loki, right? Like, he's gigantic beyond belief. We talked about this. He can control multiple elements, apparently, is an advanced Congress Hakyuza, and has the crazy legendary hammer Ragnir, which is hailed as the insane legendary artifact creature type squirrel by the people of Elbaf, and Loki also seems to represent to me the giant black dragon in the middle of the mural, right? Which is this godlike figure able to rival and maybe even destroy the Hellflame Serpent from the First World. So again, do you realize just how powerful Oda is setting this up to be? Like, seriously, if the reason that the chapter title, The Strongest Thing in the World, is actually referring to Loki, like, there's no shenanigans going on here, which we'll get to, right? But if it's the case, after, oh, but Manu, surely Emu can defeat Loki, right? And yep, that would also be bad, because if this Loki isn't close to Emu's level, then I'm kind of seriously struggling to see how
I'm gonna
anyone
pause
is
real
going to
quick.
defeat
I'm
Emu at that
reading
rate,
some
because
quotes. I be quiet most of the time. I'm not gonna front y'all. So I'm looking up quotes from Amilcar Cabral. Amilcar Cabral was revolutionary from Guinea-Bissau. Um, Guy surveyed the land of Guinea-Bissau. He saw how capitalism, industrialization was exploiting his country and his land. Monoculture, I think it's called like mono harvesting or something like that. I forgot what you call it. Monocropping. That's what it's called. They were monocropping, and they were just using that island just to use it for one crop. I believe was like peanuts, and the peanuts was eroding the soil, and the people didn't have any like claim to the product. It was all Portuguese government that was owning these companies and they was shipping it back to Portugal. Everything that was coming, everything was dependent on like export, and everything was expensive. That people were suffering because of this. They were not reaping the benefits of their own. They were not reaping the benefits of their own, of their own land, or not even of their own whatever they were farming. And then it was also eroding the land, and they didn't care. They were like gonna do this until it fucked up all the soil. And he linked that to capitalism and all that good stuff. So here's some quotes. Always bear in mind that the people are not fighting for ideas, for the things in anyone's head. They are fighting to win material benefits, to live better and in peace, to see their lives go forward, to guarantee the future for their children. People are not fighting for ideas, for the things in anyone's heads. They are fighting to win material benefits, to live better and in peace, to see their lives go forward, to guarantee the future of their children. Hide nothing from the masses of the people, tell no lies, expose lies whenever they are told, mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures, claim no easy victories. We must act as if we answer to and only answer to our ancestors, our children, and the unborn. That is tough. We must act as if we answer to and only answer to our ancestors, our children, and the unborn. We are fighting so that insults may no longer rule our century. We are fighting so that insults may no longer rule our countries, martyred and scorned for centuries, so that our people may never be exploited by imperialists, not by the people with white skin, but because... Let me read this again. We are fighting so that insults may no longer rule our countries, martyred and scorned for centuries, so that our peoples may never more be exploited by imperialists, not only by people with white skin, because we do not confuse exploitation or exploiters with the color of men's skin. We do not want any exploitation in our countries, not even by black people. We must practice revolutionary democracy in every aspect of our party life. Every responsible member must have the courage of his responsibilities, exacting from others a proper respect for his work and properly respecting the work of others. Hide nothing from the masses of our people. Tell no lies. Expose lies when they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victories. That's fair, yeah. Yep. We must walk rapidly, but not run. We must not be opportunities nor allow our enthusiasms to make us lose the vision of concrete reality. We must walk rapidly but not run. We must walk rapidly but not run. We must not be opportunists nor allow our enthusiasms to make us lose the vision of concrete reality. Yep. Educate ourselves, educate other people, the population in general, to fight fear and ignorance, to eliminate little by little the subjugation to nature and natural forces with which our economy has not yet mastered. A people who free themselves with a people who free themselves from foreign domination will be free from culturally only if a people with it's hard to see on a computer. A people who free themselves from foreign domination will be free culturally only if, without complexes and without underestimating the importance of positive accretions from oppressor and other cultures, they return to the upward paths of their own culture, which is nourished by the living reality of its environment and which negates both harmful influences and any kind of subjugation to foreign culture. Thus, it may be seen that if the imperialist domination has the vital need to practice cultural oppression, national liberation is necessarily an act of culture. One of the most serious errors, if not the most serious error committed by colonial powers in Africa, may have been to ignore or underestimate the cultural strength of the African peoples. The colonists usually say that it was they who brought us into history. Today we show that this is not so. They made us leave history, our history, to follow them, right at the back to follow the progress of their history. Tell no lies, claim no easy victories. Future culture is simultaneously the fruit of people's history and determinant of history. National liberation is necessarily an act of culture. I like this one. Let me see. I like, we must act as if we answer to and only answer to our ancestors, our children, and the unborn. I think that we must act as if we answer to and only answer to our ancestors and children and the unborn. Yep, I'm gonna read that one. Let me see. Oh, I got a chat. Can you draw the keyboard cat meme, please? Can you draw the keyboard cat meme, please? I don't know what the keyboard cat meme is. I'm also not taking really requests. I'm just drawing my own thing. So, yeah. If you don't want to watch this live, that's fine too. Appreciate it though. Always reading quotes of things that I'm going to draw. So, yeah. Let's see. We must act as if we answer to and only answer to our ancestors. Cool. Let me see. Let me see. I'm gonna do that one. Alright. Cool. Alright, so now we have that. Alright, continue on with the video.
Luffy is, I personally would think, unless this thing, this giant black Loki dragon is surprisingly weak, I don't think Luffy's anywhere close to that level in power. I mean, yeah, I guess that's an angle that Oda could also take, just making Inu so beyond unbelievably powerful that even Luffy and Loki together in these crazy forms aren't capable of defeating them. But then what's the point, right? Like, Luffy should eventually be able to defeat Inu or Blackbeard or someone with the Abyss powers, so I think it's pretty clear that that's the direction that Oda's going with things, unless Luffy isn't even in his god form strong enough to kill Inu, kind of like how Joybird wasn't strong enough, and he might need something else, like something that can only
You
be
see,
used once,
actually.
maybe on Laugh Tale to defeat Inu, but still, you get what I'm saying, right? So by making Loki this broken, but then setting an even further bar ahead with Inu, it kind of starts to make the entire scale of power in One Piece that, I usually stay away from for a reason, a little bit more difficult to decipher than it already has been over the last couple of arcs. So, to me, there are two paths really that this makes sense. Either Loki is not actually as powerful as we all think, and all the stuff we've seen, heard, and had explained to us is kind of, hyperbolized, which would be kind of frustrating, or Loki becomes possessed and is instead a threat to the Straw Hats and the world, which I think would just make way more sense and also fix a lot of the stuff that, I'm sort of mentally struggling with keeping, in order right now. And on top of that, it might also help Luffy grow to that right level as well. Also, before we move on to the next section of the video, very random thought I just had. Was this the type of dragon that Enuma slayed? Because that would make him so much more impressive than whatever we saw on, like, Punk Hazard, what Caesar cooked up. Anyways, next section. Alright, so here's why I think that, Loki being turned is just the best outcome for everyone. You, me, the series, the whole lot, even for Geto back there, probably. I don't know, he's dead. Loki is really sick as a character because he seems totally busted. He's giant, badass, feels unstoppable. I personally really vibe with his personality. I guess that's more subjective. But I kind of want all of that feeling to remain, since it's the same stuff that, made me fall in love with Loki as a character to begin with. But I'm probably not alone at, originally thinking that he was just like maybe Luffy tier, not clearly way above everyone else on that island. But since it seems like Loki is just like totally freaking busted, it feels more like there will be some big pivot in Elbaf that we're moving towards right now. I do not think that Oda is going to just
apparently can go from 0 to a complete site in just a single prompt with Wixed Harmony. I don't know if this is going to be possible. Revive coding meets drag and drop freedom. We'll see about that. All right, let me try to make up a site to sell some, like, theoretical Sambucha kombucha. Make me a site about Sambucha kombucha. Make it look nice and pretty and...
either drop the ball with Loki's hype or create a hero that's so broken it makes Luffy straight up feel weak. That's not good shonen writing, and I know Oda is not going to do that. And that's why in Elbaf, where we've already seen a handful of crazy powerful characters be possessed and turn evil, Loki also becoming a Domi Reversi beast feels like the best answer here. And this would then allow for Loki to actually be this disgustingly broken character, because everyone would just need to fight against him rather than alongside him, kind of like a parallel to Horus on Thriller Bark maybe. And because of the nature of Domi Reversi, it would technically make him even stronger, since Imu's powers seem to buff characters like Zebek or the Giants to an even crazier level. Not to mention, we already know that Imu wants to recruit Loki anyways. I mean, we saw Gunko and Shenron come to Elbaf originally with that exact goal. They wanted Loki amongst the Holy Knights, just like his father. Imu's old motto, if you can't beat him, use him. But that didn't work out, obviously, and when they realized he wasn't going to play ball, the only option left was to kill him, which also didn't work. Makes me kind of think that Shenron left him alive, to be honest, but I didn't feel like he was very particularly serious at that point anyways, and, he was like, once you're free, let's fight again. Like,
My bad, guys.
and still holding out for good guy Shenron, as you can tell, like, still a massive theme. Don't be surprised if it ends up playing a massive central role at the end and for the final war as well. Also, just to be clear, I'm not saying this will happen 100%. Watch me. This isn't a theory, really. It's just what my gut feeling is kind of telling me should happen based on what Oda has been setting up, laid out, and just generally been establishing throughout his world building and by loose power scaling that has me kind of scratching my head, and especially as
look.
that Oda threw out
The
there, and we're
teeth.
all like, oh my god, what does that even mean?
Them teeth look crazy.
Because it's part of the
this
point of the story.
this is looking crazy, y'all. Let's just trust the process, though. Let's just trust the process.
Egghead actually count towards the final saga? Do we still have 5 arcs to go? I don't know. Different discussion, different video. But it is very clear that ever since Wano, the story has been escalating, not only in stakes, but also just in raw power output we see from characters. I'm gonna be really dumb and say the most clippable thing, and I know I'm gonna get some hate for this, but I actually think that Roger realistically probably would get his ass beat by current Luffy. And I am so confident in that statement right now, because to be real with you, while certain characters of course can confidently take on all of these in a one-on-one immediately right now, characters like Law, Kid, Zoro, and Luffy are so close already to the level of the old heads in their early 20s and teens. Like, this is always what has been the craziest thing about the entire new and worse generation, that many of them are so young, and you know, maybe even while not yet overcoming the crazy feats of the previous generations, they're doing things very close to them at a much, much younger age, where all of these guys were still rookies when they were in their 20s. Like, Roger was not that scary in his 20s, I think we can all assume, and not as strong as Luffy is right now. Because the old generation wasn't the final benchmark that Oda was planning for to begin with, I think. They were the foundation that couldn't succeed. It's kind of classic anime logic that the new generation always surpasses the past one. Shanks better than Roger, Luffy better than Shanks, and who knows, maybe there will be someone after Luffy who will be stronger than Luffy. It's a classic thing, you know it from Shonen, right? Which now actually leads me into trying to unravel the big point of the day. Did Shanks, the Golden Age hockey goat, defeat Loki, the spry youngster bigger than most countries we've been to in the entire story? There are really only 2 possibilities here. Either Shanks did actually defeat Loki in a clean, all-out dragon form brawl, or he did not. If he didn't, that changes a lot, because Shanks has already ended wars without ever lifting a finger. The man stepped into Marineford, and the party went quiet. Maybe the same thing happened with Kaido, we don't know. And since we do know that Shanks saw Loki kill Harold and was the one responsible for bringing him back to Elbaf, it's entirely possible that whatever happened between him and Loki was more negotiation, timing, politics, or suppression, not raw dominance, whooping Loki's butt and then chaining him up and dragging him back to Elbaf. I can definitely see the situation being more of a, you Loki are too strong to be going out here doing reckless things. He will come for you. You have to go back to Elbaf, man. If you get turned into a monster, we're all gonna be screwed. And then Loki was like, well, fair enough, but I kind of hate you for doing this to me. But my personal power scaling nightmare is if Shanks actually did straight out defeat him, because then Shanks is just absurd. Because Dragon Loki is not just a big, strong giant, he's a really big, really strong giant that can override abyss powers and immortality. He destroys Holy Knights how I snap a Sakura flavored Kit Kat. And if Loki can break them and override immortality hacks, that places him on an entire different level of busted that we have not yet seen in the story, including, yes, again, God Valley. So if Shanks actually beat that, then Shanks would just be 200% outscaling the Holy Knights, right? Like, I guess you could say maybe he needs some other power to override immortality, and it's all about hacks, not power, but like, Shanks would be incredibly dominant in the world right now. Top 1 alive, not immortal, demon god type of power, right? Because if Shanks
Not as
outscales
active
Loki,
outside.
and Loki so clearly outscales most of the Holy Knights, the uncomfortable question follows, does Shanks outscale Emu? And if he does, why hasn't he ended the story already? Well, to be clear, he totally could be stronger than Emu. His hockey is comparable to Joy Boy's, apparently. We hear this, you know, according to the giant warrior pirates on Naked Islands. And also, to be fair, I don't think raw power is how you defeat Emu, and I also don't think that it's how Emu defeated Joy Boy. I think that asking seriously, what does that mean? How are all of those different? And none of them are Shanks? Like, no, that doesn't make sense based on everything we've seen, especially recently in the story. Whitebeard was the strongest man, but was he stronger than Kaido in every conceivable situation? Or was he only the strongest human male in his prime? Like, and since Kaido was an Oni, he was instead the strongest creature. But should creature include humans or does it exclude them? Like, is it a branding term for mythic aura? Like, seriously, Mihawk, let's go to him. He's the strongest swordsman, we know that, we've been told a bunch of times. He should be all metrics and defeat all people that have a sword, so does that mean he automatically beats Shanks in every possible fighting scenario? Or does it mean that he's the most refined, pure swordsman when it comes to sword skills? Or did he just paint his sword black? I don't know, man. It does not make sense looking at it through this lens. If Shanks is a swordsman and Mihawk is the strongest swordsman, then Mihawk should be above Shanks. But Shanks one-shot Kid. Shanks paralyzed Green Bull from miles away by unleashing his sword and pushed him out of his Logia form. His Conquest Haki portrayal is overwhelming, breaking like the ship around him as he walks, and is apparently Joy Boy tier. So either Mihawk is a secretly super mega super demon powerful thing that we haven't seen yet, which I mean I guess may be possible, he has the Ewise, or the title is just very niche specific, or swordsmanship does just not equal pure power. Now I can see, even though you're chewing right now, you want to ask me what do I think is the most likely option. Well, first off, I hope it tastes well, whatever you're eating right now, but also I'll give you an answer. Mihawk is the strongest character in all of anime, and he actually will defeat you in real life through the pages of the book if you ever doubt him again. Speaking of which, don't doubt him or me, and subscribe to the Ahara Patreon if you want more fun content like this. I put out my initial thoughts on the chapter there, have a bunch of other premium content, and I'm adding even more pretty cool stuff this year. If you're still watching here, I think you'll love it, or you might be asleep. Do it, or else Mihawk will cut you down through the next manga page. In reality though, One Piece uses titles as myth-making tools for elite tier aura farming, and it does that really well. I'm like, not even saying that's a bad thing. That's it. They don't actually have absolute weight because the next arc needs to have someone stronger for the stakes of anime to keep working. There is a fantastic book by the author of JoJo's where he writes about how to write the perfect shonen, and literally the secret sauce formula that all of them use, including Oda, is stakes always need to go up. Growth always needs to go up. Like, that's the formula, and that is what One Piece is as well. The way I look at it, Luffy is the actual measuring stick for power in the series. He grows like at a crazy fast rate, only outscaled by Kobe if we're being honest, but you know, everything is centered around him. Gear 5 Luffy can easily contend with the Admirals now, but he is not Pirate King yet. But what
If you guys want to watch, you guys want to see what I'm doing.
Working across teams is tough, but Asana helps you handle it. That's because Asana is where humans and AI coordinate work together. AI can spot roadblocks and assign work in a snap, so everything and everyone stays on track. That's how work gets handled. That's Asana. Visit us at asana.com. That's ASANA.com.
What if they don't have But honestly, I do think that he made Roger look like Gaimon. Yet somehow, Luffy still is not finished. He still has so much room to grow. Still is nowhere near strong enough to actually take on the final, big threats of the story. And narratively, Shanks is positioned as a wall for him, a mentor, but also a hurdle to overcome. Or maybe he'll just be there to refine Luffy's brain, since his will and body are already stronger than Shanks's right now. But abyss itself. It's very likely that Ego exists on an ancient, reality-altering tier entirely separate from anything that does exist right now or has existed for the last maybe 1,000 years in One Piece, and so it doesn't matter if Shanks is stronger than Loki, or if either of them is stronger than Luffy right now, or how Zebek and Roger factor in here. All that really matters, I think, is that if Luffy can do it, he's the best at it, and right now he's got to figure out how to be better than Big Demon Mega Dragon Loki. If any of that even matters, because Joy Boy couldn't do it, so how will Luffy? And really, how strong is Joy Boy? What was his plan? Why did it fail? Like, I don't know, but I sure talked a lot about it, and if you want to see my findings, check out this video here, because boy do we need to talk about Joy Boy. Otherwise, thanks for watching. What a fun chapter. So, today I want to talk about a character that I think might just be the single most interesting, mysterious, and probably underestimated character in the entire story. Underestimated in the sense that they kind of shaped most of the world and most of the story without us.
Let's listen to conspiracies. Or ancient aliens. I like ancient aliens. I'm not gonna front with y'all. Let's see. Yeah. Sorry, y'all gotta sign into this real quick. Ooh, my bad, y'all. I know that was loud. Where is Prime Video? ask me what I ate today, guys. Today.
Some researchers believe the ultimate proof can be found nearby and also carved in stone. On my most recent visit to Pumapunku, I met with local historian Rene Quispe. I was fascinated to learn that he is one of a growing number of researchers who believe that the site is much older than what mainstream archaeology has suggested.
How does he react when people say, for example, that this place here could have been built more than 10,000 years ago?
He's that is right with you, because he thinking about 15,000 years ago.
He told me that many people outside of Bolivia won't accept this dating because they refuse to believe that the local legends could actually be based on real history. According to ancient stories, Pumapunku was built by so-called sky beings, and that the recorded proof of their time on Earth can be found in Tiwanaku, where the Incas say mankind was created.
Southern Peru, 1549. While searching for the capital of the Inca Empire, Spanish conquistadors, led by Pedro Cieza de Leon, crossed into Bolivia and discovered the ruins of Tiwanaku. Less than a quarter-mile northeast of Pumapunku, mainstream scientists believe Tiwanaku was once the center of a civilization with more than
Okay, cool.
40,000 inhabitants.
Tiwanaku is probably the greatest Native American civilization that many people haven't heard of. It was one of the most important antecedents of the Inca. It was long gone by the time the Spaniards came on the scene. Yet its level of achievement in architecture, in political development, in agriculture, in many craft industries are on a very high level.
Most scholars agree that Tiwanaku was mysteriously abandoned around 1100 AD. But why? Local legends suggest that Tiwanaku was built as a site of religious pilgrimage to celebrate the arrival of sky gods at nearby Pumapunku.
Pumapunku.
According to ancient astronaut theorists, the two sites were not only built at different times, but also by beings from different worlds.
Pumapunku, I think, is very of the gods. I think mankind did very little with that site. And then nearby, our ancestors built Tiwanaku as a
You know,
place
if
where
ancient
people
aliens wants to be taken serious, they need to really like start working on the people that they get like on their side.
where a god
I'm not trying to throw no
existed
shade or
on
nothing,
planet Earth.
but like if your representative has like a lisp, then like
Two different styles.
I don't know, man.
Old style,
You're already talking about aliens.
Western style, and then the later style which was made by the humans. Tiwanaku is nothing else but a place of pilgrimage for people to congregate and remember the time when something significant happened at Pumapunku. And the thing that was significant about it was an extraterrestrial visit by ancient aliens in the remote past.
Real quick, guys, we're gonna learn a little bit about Amilcar Cabral. Amilcar Cabral was from Guinea-Bissau. So the colors from there are black, red, yellow, green. Sorry, that might be a little close. I want to see if they have like certain, let me see. Guinea-Bissau's indigenous history, spanning over 3,000 years, is rooted in coastal farming communities, primarily the Balanta, Jola, Papel, and Manjak. Originally settled the area, later joined by inland migrations of Madinka Fulani. These diverse groups developed complex societies based on agriculture, trade, and animist beliefs before the Portuguese, French, and British colonial interfere. That page didn't really give anything too much. Let's watch this. It's gonna give us a quick history of Guinea-Bissau. Let me see. This is how I do art, guys. I like to do research on my shit. I don't like to just create.
Browse like this.
While I do this art, we're gonna watch this.
Searching. What if we could just say, hey, Copilot?
Actually. I need to go back to the dentist, bruh. They fucked my teeth up. This fucking cavity hurts. I'm over here fucking eating candy, but for real. They fucked my teeth up.
For centuries, the Bissago were buccaneers on the coasts of West Africa. Elusive pirates and skillful sailors, they disappeared into a labyrinth of islands off the coast of Guinea-Bissau, where no other ships dared to venture. This archipelago has become sacred to this people, who venerate nature and share this island refuge with it. gently against the current and cast your net. Beto is 40 years old. Ever since he was a child, he's been fishing with a casting net on the sandbanks, where small fish swarm at low tide. I had a hard time when I first started out. I wasn't doing it quite right. I didn't truly master the technique until I was 20 years old. It was important to me because it meant that I could feed my family. My father and mother were very proud. Do you want to try your hand at net fishing? I'd love to. Put your hand through here. The right hand? Now it's your turn. Go ahead. Not bad, huh? Is there a bucket to put them in? In my pocket. Oh, so I'm just here to hold the fish while you catch them. Located off the coast of Guinea-Bissau, at the mouth of the Rio Jiba, the Bisagos archipelago is made up of 80 islands and islets, separated from one another by a
I don't
network of
want to
channels.
watch
Mud-
Guinea-Bissau from Guinea. Like, I want to. Let's watch this one. This is more low-key. The Balanta people.
The Balanta are an ethnic group living in modern-day Senegal, the Gambia, and Guinea-Bissau. They are the most prominent and populous tribe in Guinea-Bissau, where they make up about a quarter of the population. Despite their numbers, they have been marginalized outside of the colonial and post-colonial state, mostly because of discrimination and in part because of their unique social organization. Their name means those who resist, which was coined by the Mandinka when they were expanding their kingdom of Kabu during the 12th century AD. The Mandinka found that there was one particular group that they could not conquer, so they started calling these people Balantu, which literally means they resisted. Before that, Balanta were known as Brasa, which in their language meant we remain. To this day, many Balanta still refer to themselves in this manner. The Balanta originated in the Nile Valley, which in modern times consists of the countries of Egypt, Sudan, South Sudan, and Ethiopia. An analysis of Balanta mitochondrial DNA revealed that they possess the M1 gene marker, a gene commonly found in the Nile Valley, specifically in Sudan. I may also note that the Balanta share a specific cultural similarity to the Nuba people of Sudan, whereas they both possess their own form of traditional wrestling that are similar to each other. According to oral traditions, the Balanta migrated out of the Nile Valley area in the time of the 10th to 14th century CE in order to escape, I quote, drought and wars. Today, the Balanta are mostly found in the southern and central regions of Guinea-Bissau. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Portugal mounted pacification campaigns against the resistant Balanta and subjugated them to appointed Fulbe or Fulani chiefs. Because of the Portuguese repression, the Balanta enlisted as soldiers in great numbers and were principal supporters of the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, otherwise known as the PAIGC, in the nationalist struggle for liberation during the 1960s and the 1970s. Many Balanta resented their exclusion from the government. Their prominence in military spurred a series of Balanta-led coup attempts in the 1980s. There are many different subgroups of Balanta, all speaking their own dialect of the Balanta language, but are all able to understand each other. Some of these include the Brasa, Kentohe, Hakra, Ganja, and Pech, just to name a few. The Balanta are fishermen, herders, and cultivators. They grow millet, rice, peanuts, cashew, and fruit for a cash crop. Their specialty, though, is the culture of the cashew, which they derive from the apple wine cashew called the kaju. The export to India of cashew nuts also provides an important economic force in the Balanta villages. Raising cattle is also a traditional activity predominant as the sacrifice of cattle is important in all stages of life, including initiation, marriage, death, and etc. The back of the Guinea-Bissau's 50 peso note shows two farmers wielding an agricultural tool that is called the kimbinde. These tools are used by the Balanta to prepare the soil for planting crops, which is usually rice. Use of the kimbinde is an art that has been perfected over the years by the Balanta people who deservedly hold a reputation as expert farmers. Along with intricate irrigation systems that mix salt water and fresh water, they manage to maintain nutrients in the soil and achieve excellent yields. After the harvest, the Balanta people have a celebration called the Kasunde, where non-initiated men compete in dancing and wrestling. The Balanta value equality and independence above all else. They have a very egalitarian social structure, which is why the Portuguese found them hard to control. Organization and power resides within families and clans that occupy a specific region or township. This differs from the traditional West African system of chiefs, who normally are in charge of a whole village. Instead, there is a council of elders who get together whenever big decisions need to be made on behalf of the village. These councils normally consist of initiated men, and sometimes women. Another staple of the Balanta society is its age group class system. As men and women progress in maturity, they are initiated into various age classes, where they learn their place in Balanta society. One of the most significant aspects of the Balanta culture is Fanado. Fanado is a sort of mystery school in which men are initiated into upon reaching the highest level of maturity. Usually when they have become a landowner and have taken on family responsibilities, they are chosen by their maternal uncle to participate in these rites of passage. Once chosen, Balanta men cannot refuse their family's wishes. The Fanado is a 2-month process in the sacred woods, which is the ultimate phase of initiation rites. Anyone who is not Brasa is forbidden from setting foot in the Balanta territory while Fanado is taking place. This is notoriously known throughout the country, and the penalty for this can be severe and even fatal. Circumcision and initiation during the Fanado ritual opens the doors of maturity, wisdom, and high standing in the Balanta community. What is imparted to the initiates during the Fanado not only concerns their entire culture, but also how to behave with others, how to manage their family, and how to live as adults and men. The tests and trials are hard, to the point where some people face physical suffering, mutilation, and some even death. After 2 months in the sacred woods, the initiate, if survived, is ready to return to his family as a new man. Nothing remains of the place where the rite was held. Everything is burnt and jealously guarded in secret by those who took part. Mothers learn of the fate of their son only on arrival to the village of the new man. The most valiant initiates that do survive emerge from the sacred woods to songs of their bravery by family and friends. The initiate then wears a bright red hat to show that he has become Lante Ndam, a brave man. And the following day, he is allowed to serve on the council of elders who manages village life. The late former president of Guinea-Bissau, Kumbayala, was a member of the Balanta people and was often seen wearing a red hat as a sign that he had completed the Fanado initiation. The Balanta practice indigenous spiritual customs and rites. In the Balanta society, the word for God is Nyale, or Nyala, and is believed to be very far away. Communication with the Almighty is established through their spiritual practices and traditions. Although Catholicism has been partially accepted, Islam is predominant, and and is practiced along with their unique spirit worship. The Balanta play a gourd lute instrument called the kasinta, which is similar to other West African lutes like the akonteng and buchondo. This instrument is said to be the precursor to the banjo, which was made popular by African slaves in the American South and Caribbean and was integral to the early jazz and blues creation. In addition to the kasinta, the Balanta also play a 24-key balafon, also known as the bombolon.
A few significant historical Balanta people include Amilcar Cabral, a Bissau Guinean and Cape Verdean agricultural engineer, intellectual, poet, theoretician, revolutionary, political organizer, nationalist, and diplomat. He was one of Africa's foremost anti-colonial leaders and led Guinea-Bissau to its independence via the PAIGC.
Kumba Yala, the former president of Guinea-Bissau, who fought for their independence in his teenage years and was also an accomplished multilingual scholar and professor. Colonel Paulo Correa, first vice president of Guinea-Bissau. Dr. Viriatu Pam, former attorney general for Guinea-Bissau and former lawyer working in Lisbon, Portugal. Dr. Luis Fornachuda, a Bissau Guinean scientist and mathematician who studied in Russia and figured out various revolutionary formulas. He also has a high school in Guinea-Bissau named after him. Other famous Balanta include Binyan, an award-winning musician and recording artist from Guinea-Bissau. Welkit Bungie, a rising star actor who is known for his television performances in Brazil and Portugal. Augusto Madana, a Bissau Guinean freestyle wrestler who competes in the men's middleweight category. He has represented Guinea-Bissau in the Olympics since the year 2008 and has went up against some of the best wrestlers in the world, such as Jordan Burroughs from the United States. He is currently the #1 African champion in the world. Bruma, a Portuguese professional footballer who plays for the
Why is
German
this
club
doing this?
RB Leipzig as a winger. Sadio Mane, a Senegalese professional footballer who also plays as a winger for the Premier League club Liverpool, as well as the Senegalese national team. Finally, some notable Balanta descendants include Tom Jordan, an accomplished American radio personality and talk host of the Tom Jordan Morning Show. Antonio Marcus Carter, also known as Tony Carter, was a running back drafted to the NFL in 1994 and played for teams such as the Chicago Bears, New England Patriots, Denver Broncos, and Green Bay Packers. And last but not least, yours truly, Arasa Malik.
Hello, welcome to BioGrades TV. If you're new here, please subscribe and turn on the notification so you don't miss our next video. Major ethnic groups in Guinea-Bissau and their peculiarities. Guinea-Bissau is a tiny country in the western part of Africa and has a population of about 1.8 million people. The country was colonized by the Portuguese, and at the time, it was simply known as Guinea. Bissau was added to the name of the country in 1974 to differentiate it from French Guinea. There are over 30 ethnic groups in Guinea-Bissau. Some of the major ethnic groups there are the Fulani. The Fulani people are the single largest ethnic group in Guinea-Bissau. They account for about 28.5% of the country's population, and they dwell mostly in the eastern part of the country, particularly in Bafata and Gabu. It is estimated that there are between 38 and 40 million Fulani people in different countries across the African continent. In Guinea-Bissau, they are estimated to be about 517,560. The Fulani people of the country, like the fellow tribe in other parts of Africa, are traditionally herders, although some have settled or become sedentary farmers. The Fulani people speak the Fulani language, and about 90% of them are Muslims. This ethnic group, like their counterparts all over Africa, follow a code of behavior known as Pulaku, which literally means the Fulani pathways. This moral code is passed on by each generation, and it is so crucial to their identity. Major values of the Pulaku include Munyal, which speaks of patience, self-control, discipline, and prudence. Gachi, representing modesty and respect for others. Akile stands for wisdom, forethought, personal responsibility, and hospitality. And Sagata, signifying courage and hard work. Balanta. The Balanta ethnic group represents about 22.5% of Guinea-Bissau's population. They mainly reside in the southern part of the country, particularly in Katio and in Oyo. The members of the Balanta ethnic group are also present in the neighboring countries of the Gambia and Senegal. They are believed to have migrated to the present-day Guinea-Bissau in small groups around the 14th century. They can be further divided into four subgroups: Balanta Brasa, Balanta Ganja, Balanta Mane, and Balanta Kentove. The Balanta Brasa are the largest of the subgroups. The Balanta people are renowned farmers, growing rice, millet, peanuts, and cashew. They developed an intricate irrigation system which mixes salt and fresh water to maintain the soil nutrients and ensure good yields. They have a special farming tool called kebinde, which is used to prepare the soil, especially for rice cultivation. This tool is depicted in the 50 peso note of the nation's currency. Important decisions among the Balanta are taken by the Council of Elders. To be a part of this council, the person must undergo initiation during the Fanado ceremony. A man is chosen by his maternal uncle to participate in the Fanado initiation once he becomes a landowner and has a family. The ceremony takes place every 4 years and lasts for about 2 months in a place called the Sacred Woods. A major feature of the Fanado ceremony is circumcision rites. Kumbayala, ex-president of Guinea-Bissau, is from the Balanta ethnic group. Mandinka. The Mandinka or Maninka ethnic group makes up 14.7% of the population of Guinea-Bissau, and they are mainly found in the northern part of the country. The Mandinka ethnic group trace their ancestry to the famous Mali Empire, which rose to prominence in the 13th century under the leadership of Sundiata Keita. Mandinka villages are composed of clans or family groups which all have the same name. Each clan has their unique emblem. Each village has a wall surrounding it, and the houses are made of sun-dried bricks shaped either round or rectangle with thatch roof. While most Mandinka people are Muslims, they they still practice their traditional religions alongside. Papel. The Papel ethnic group accounts for 9.1% of the population of Guinea-Bissau. They can also be found in Senegal, particularly in Casamance region, as well as in Guinea. According to the 2012 estimates, there were about 150,000 people of Papel ethnicity in Guinea-Bissau. The people are mostly farmers and hunters. Their land is very suitable for rice cultivation. Most Papels are of the Christian faith, especially Catholicism, while others hold to their traditional beliefs of which ancestral worship is a key part. The names of Papel people are usually Portuguese because the Portuguese occupied the country from the late 15th century until 1973. The Papel tribe strongly resisted Portuguese occupation, organizing armed resistance that lasted over a century until they were finally subdued. Other ethnic groups in Guinea-Bissau include the Manjaco, Biafada, Bijago, and the Felugu. However, a few of Guinea-Bissau residents identify themselves as not belonging to any ethnic group. Such people make up about 2.2% of the population. Which have we missed out of these ethnic groups? Let's know in the comment section. Will it be ridiculous to subscribe to our channel? If no, please like this video, share, and subscribe to our channel.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform. Describe what you want, and watch it take shape. You can plan, customize, and expand in any direction. From tools built for one, to platforms ready for many. From passion projects to enterprise-grade systems. Everything is built in and ready to launch. It's a new world of creation, where you can go as far as your imagination takes you. Can you imagine it? Let's make your dream a reality, right now.
One bag, infinite possibilities. Kate Spade.
Everybody looking at me because of my voice.
Yeah. For buying me that for them. Every people look you.
Yeah, of course. Everyone wondering where I'm from. Because I'm big. People from Guinea are not big. They are small. I look like a giant. Who is this guy? Where is it from?
Nigeria.
Behind me is the embassy of Brazil, Embaixada Brazil. So many people from Guinea-Bissau travel to Brazil because they speak Portuguese.
You know Cape Verde?
Cape Verde, yeah? People from Bissau go there?
Yeah.
It's a city.
Yeah. Not very big.
Yeah, small country.
Yeah, small country.
You need to get water. Thank you.
Break.
President House.
Despite do passo, Achipolo do passo, Bolarino do passo. For my headache, why you want drink I'm so? I dey clear my line go on daily basis. Things I've been through got me feeling like Matrix. I know numbers, I good in mathematics. It's all about the papers, got you for no D's. Notice, see, I not be novice. I come in the building, I'm in the wrong things.
Guys, we just arrived at the Banzir market. This is Banzir. Banzir market is one of the biggest markets in Bissau. So it's So we're just taking a walk through the market. And he said there are lots of Nigerians here in this market. Let's see, maybe I'll find 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 people. You never know. I might run into someone I know. So now we look forward to get our stuff.
Wait, guys, we gotta give it a listen. Brandy. Brandy just did the national anthem. Let's see. As a former guide on my flight when I was in the Air Force, I just know that their fucking arms are killing them. I know their fucking arms are shaking. Yeah, I know their fucking hands are fucking shaking. Let's see what they're saying in the comments, y'all. Half and half. People hating, people loving it. Let's see what they saying. This one has 57 comments. This other one has 14 only. They said, Brandy, I love you down, mama, but this was a bit messy. Just saying. Yes, with Ashley A. from Jones Diary behind her. Yes, bunch of pre-recorded vocals, the most dramatic facial expressions, and she literally not moving much air through her body for those notes. Probably because the entire song is pre-recorded. Sing the damn song straight up vocal Bible. Stern performance. The ones that gave Stern were the background singers. My bad, y'all. My bad. She feeling herself with all the praise that she's been getting because this one was horrible, they said. And I love Brandy. Anyway.
Morning rush. This is morning.
Not every people can hear.
Yeah.
It's ugly.
Only morning time. Morning, afternoon, anytime, right?
What?
I mean, anytime.
Yes. Anytime. Okay.
big.
Yeah, it's big. Very big. Yeah, you see it.
Inside.
Man, I don't like this.
I asked to Nigerian in the south.
Huh?
Nigerian.
Ah.
You go to there, he's gonna give you this. You come right after, you morning,
I don't understand.
eh?
You say Nigeria what?
Nigerian are very check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheerful.
Now, this, check.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're gonna give you. You come there. You wanna. Sorry. After you come back with money. Where is your position? You don't understand.
No, I try to understand you. You say Nigeria give you what?
Yeah.
They give you check.
Yeah. For that t-shirt.
Okay.
After you come back for Nigeria for pay.
Okay. They give you credits.
Yeah.
Credits.
Yeah.
What about the South Guinean? They don't do that? Your people don't do that?
Yeah.
They do credits?
People do. But not too much.
But Nigeria do always.
Yeah.
They give you to go use and later come and pay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It looks nice there.
Everybody looking at me because of my body.
Yeah. For 5 minutes for day, every people look you. Where is this man from?
Yeah. Oh, even in Bar Milita?
I know.
Yeah, of course. Everyone wondering where I'm from. Why? Because I'm big? Because I'm big.
Yeah.
Where are we going? Where are we going?
What?
Where are we going?
Yeah, market in press. You say you want to go bank, you want to go my.
Yeah.
Market park.
Yeah, fix that W.
Yeah.
Yes. Bank.
Bow.
Bank Africa Occidental.
Everybody wonder where I come from. Yeah, the reason is because they are not usually big like I am. So I look like a giant. And everybody's wondering, who is this guy? Where is it from? Yeah. People from Guinea are not big. They are small, small. You have big people? I've not seen anyone.
I wish I had some chips.
Your country. Your country or your house?
My house. My house.
This is your country.
Yes, yes. This is my country. Now I'm going to take this way. For Prague.
Okay.
How do I want this?
I want to take this photo here. This? Let me see.
Welcome to Guinea-Bissau.
I love Guinea-Bissau.
It is down. Welcome.
Hotel. This is what?
Hotel.
Hotel.
Yeah. This is assembly.
The what?
Assembly.
Assembly.
Where is
for the government?
Yeah.
So this area is called what? What is this area called?
This.
Yeah, where are we now?
Go for Prague.
Pras. Oh, Pras City.
Go beach.
Beach? Yeah, Prague. Oh, there's a beach there.
No beach for very bad from.
Huh?
No beach for.
For who?
Yeah, no. For bad, canoe, yachting.
Not for swimming.
Yeah, no for this.
Yeah.
But for yacht.
Yacht. For
Yeah. For transport maritime.
to the island? You follow this side to the island?
Yeah, island. Yeah. Yeah, we also have very island.
Yeah.
Very. 18 island.
18 island?
18
18
Yeah. I have to one island in Guinea-Bissau. No people, no day.
So who there inside?
Yeah.
Who there? Nobody.
Nobody. Everything no day.
Wow. So total of how many islands in Guinea-Bissau? How many islands you get?
18.
18. And some people stay in some of the islands?
Yes.
Oh, I would love to see.
Amilcar Cabral.
Yeah, that's a nice painting. Who is that?
Amilcar Cabral.
Amilcar Cabral is who?
Yeah.
Who is that?
This big man.
Ah.
Pan-African. Amilcar Cabral, Kwame Nkrumah.
Yeah, you know Kwame Nkrumah?
Huh?
You know
Yeah.
Kwame Nkrumah
I know.
from Ghana?
My school is called Kwame Nkrumah.
Oh. Kwame Nkrumah have a school here in Guinea-Bissau. That's your school?
Yeah.
I want photo of this.
You want
Ah,
Amilcar Cabral.
Amilcar Cabral.
These goddamn R's, bruh.
So behind me is the embassy of Brazil. How you call it? Embassy of Brazil?
Baixada Brazil.
Baixada Brazil. So many people from Guinea-Bissau travel to Brazil because they speak Portuguese and Portugal too. People from Guinea-Bissau travel to
You know Cape Verde?
Cape Verde, yeah? People from Bissau go there?
Yeah.
Oh,
Cape Verde.
Cabo Verde, Cape Verde, Cabo Verde,
No, Cabo Verde.
Cabo Verde. But in English they say Cape Verde,
Cape Verde.
but in Portuguese Cabo Verde. Oh, Cape Verde, Capo Verde. That's the embassy of Capo Verde. So this way we get it, Jesse.
This? You go for scholars. You go there. No, very much.
Okay.
I hate these
Me,
goddamn
I like
R's.
to walk. Me, I'm
me see.
concerned about you.
I need to see it all.
Me, I can walk from here to Nigeria. Yeah, but you, what about you? You like to walk?
I like.
Because if me alone, I will not enter that car. I will walk from hotel to this place.
Estádio Nino Correia.
Hmm?
Estádio Nino Correia.
Stadium.
Play football.
Yeah, stadium.
Tú puedes hacer una donación para ayudar a los niños de St. Jude Children's Research Hospital.
Yo tenía un cáncer, no me crecía el pelo, me tengo que pusir esto para que...
You go to do fitness gym.
The gym. Ah, okay.
Fitness.
Free?
Fitness.
Yeah, fitness. That's the gym, gym fitness. Stadium. Study.
Yeah, come with it. Use it.
Oh. Okay, okay.
Handball, football, basket.
Yeah. I see. Where is the gate? The gate.
Yeah.
Where?
Where it is?
The gate. Go inside. Where you pass to go inside?
My side.
No, inside is
Ah, yeah.
entrance.
Yes.
That side. this is the city? This is city.
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's all no very big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Small country.
Yeah, small country.
Sorry. How you say sorry in Portuguese? Desculpa. Desculpa.
Pa.
Pa. Desculpa. 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 Desculpa.
This is Benfield Club. Benfield, Portugal.
What? Benfield?
Portugal. You know this club Benfield?
For what?
Club and play football.
Ah. Benfica.
Yes.
Where is it?
Yeah, this.
The club?
Yeah.
Club Benfica. Ah. You need to get water. Water.
Yeah.
Ah, coin. Thank you. Oh my God.
Go look this Colas.
Yeah.
After you come.
Oh, this is nice.
This is it.
Let's see.
In my pocket. Oh, so I'm just here to hold the fish while you catch them.
I'm gonna have to practice just
Located off the coast of Guinea-Bissau,
My
at the
R's.
mouth of the Rio Jeba, the Bisagos archipelago is made up of 80 islands and islets, separated from one another by a network of channels, mudflats, and sandbanks.
Let's do more. Let's get litty lit.
I like those roots there.
Yes.
Beautiful.
They're mangrove roots. They go from top to bottom. They go down into the water to cling to the mud.
That's how the mangroves gain ground. Impressive. Mangroves occupy a large fringe of the Bisagos archipelago. They're home to a rich ecosystem where migratory birds and fish come to breed.
Take the paddle and probe to see the bottom. That's it.
Okay?
Okay. Shout if you touch the bottom.
Fundo. Muito fundo. Fundo nada.
You have to be careful here because of the sandbanks and the rocks. There's a risk of running aground or breaking the engine. You can get into trouble pretty quickly. It's better to raise the motor and push the boat.
How do you find your way around the sandbanks and pebbles?
I'm a little itchy, my bad, guys.
We sail by instinct. We don't have any GPS devices here, no depth finders or maps. We just look around and recognize places we've been to before. If you don't have a good memory around here, you can get into a lot of trouble.
There's not much water here, just this much.
I've been told that long ago, our ancestors were warriors. They would set off in pirogues to attack boats that ran aground on the sandbanks. Then they hid in their villages, in the forest, in the heart of the islands, where no one could find them.
After 4 hours of sailing, we finally arrive at our destination, Karachi Island. This is where Beto lives. It's one of the archipelago's 21 inhabited islands and the farthest from the mainland. Is your village over there?
Yes, but you can't see it from the sea. It's in the middle of the forest.
Inland?
Yes. We'll dock here. It's the only beach on the island. Then we'll continue on foot. It would take us at least 3 or 4 hours to go through the mangroves. It's a lot longer.
To escape the Portuguese settlers, the inhabitants of the Bisagos Islands took refuge inland. That's where they built their villages, out of sight and protected by the immense forests. The intrepid Bisagos sailors became farmers, learning how to plow their land, harvest the fruits of the forest, and live on nature's bounty alone.
Look, this is my rice field. The rice is ripe. We'll harvest it this week. See those little birds there? They're weavers. They're here all the time. They eat the rice. We protect the crops with these cables, but they're determined.
That's a full-time job. The weaver birds are a real scourge for the Bisago. In just a few hours, they can ravage the fields of rice that are the staple crop of the island's inhabitants.
Look at this hut. We use it to chase away the weaver birds when they attack the grains of rice.
It's a miller's staircase.
Careful.
It's like being on a boat, but on land.
Look out. This can kill someone.
Is there an L somewhere there? No.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. I like that L.
Beto, can I try? Like this?
Okay, now.
No. That's it. Everyone here is a farmer, harvesting palm nuts to make oil, growing rice, yams, and manioc. That's the everyday life of the Bisago. People also fish early in the morning just to feed themselves. That's what the Bisago have always done.
At Marshall's, our buyers hustle 24/7 to get you great deals on the good stuff.
The harvest harvest season brings with it great fests and celebrations. In Beto's village, the festivities have already begun. Dressed in their saya, or straw skirts, the women dance and sing. The men have gathered in the center of the village. Some are wearing costumes and masks made to look like animal heads.
Yeah. Right there.
What's going on?
Vaca Bruto. It's a traditional ceremony that brings together all the young people in the village. Takes place once a year.
The Vaca Bruto dance marks the passage from childhood to adulthood. This is the Fanado ceremony, the most important moment in the life of any Bissago. What's the purpose of the cow mask?
My people believe that animals are sacred and inhabited by spirits. Each of us has a totem animal. These dances are a way of paying homage to the spirits of nature. There are three categories of dancers. The first group is dressed in loincloths. It's all teenagers. The second group wears all kinds of costumes, and it's made up of young adults. The third group of dancers is the oldest. They wear ox horns on their heads. It consists of young people who will soon be leaving for the sacred forest to undergo an initiation rite. Once they've done that, they can never dance the Vaca Bruto again. In the life of the Bissago, children have no responsibilities. All you have to do is have fun. But the day you're told you have to do your fanado, that means you become an adult. It's up to you to look after your house and provide for your family and the village elders. For us, it's the custom to serve the clan. Everything you do for the clan. These are our traditions, our laws, which have been handed down from generation to generation.
In the early morning, while the women gather shellfish on the beach, we prepare the nets before setting out to sea with Beto and his son, Manuel. Beto is the only person in his village to own a motorized pirogue. With it, he can sail far off the coast and sell his catch in Bissau, the capital.
Today, the Bissago have become a land-dwelling people. They hardly ever go to sea because they've lost the habit of sailing. Some can even stay on an island for 5 or 6 years without ever going out on the water. Most of them have never been to the capital, Bissau. Many of them are afraid of the sea. When they get into a pirogue, they can't stand the smell of the fuel. They get seasick, makes them nauseous.
We head for the southern part of the archipelago, close to Orengo Island. Because of the shallows and the currents, this area is full of fish, and Beto is hoping to find a large fish that swam from the open sea. we're not alone. There are humpback dolphins swimming alongside us. They too are looking for food.
Voilà. Yeah. Voila.
That's it.
C'est fini.
The worst part will be to bring it all back in.
Yeah. Eri dia Estados Unidos.
Look, they're from Senegal. I learned to fish with them when I wanted to become a professional fisherman. They come to the archipelago because where they live, they no longer have any big fish like we do here.
That's a big fish they have there. This big.
It's a barracuda. Thread fins and barracudas are the most expensive fish. They sell very well. But if I catch other species, that's fine too. I just take them back to my village and we eat them as a family.
Do you ever catch very big fish?
Yes, sometimes I even catch sharks. You can find some very large ones around here. We used to catch them fairly often. But now we're seeing fewer and fewer of them. It's very rare to catch one these days.
Do you catch them for their fins?
Yes, fins are in very high demand, especially with Chinese offshore fishermen. When we saw that, all the local fishermen started catching more and more sharks because it paid well. Now there aren't many left.
Now back to this man.
Pull harder, Mark.
Yes, Beto. Ah, there's a big one. It's beautiful. Great.
Great. Come on, Mark.
Yes, boss.
Ami patrão, ami bom mestre.
Can I come work for you? It's too late to return to Karachi. Beto decides to set up camp for the night on Orengo Island. Oh, I see.
This is how you cook fish when you don't have an oven.
It cooks slowly but surely.
You know, when I was born, life was a lot harder than it is today. We had no shoes. We walked barefoot. We had nothing. When we saw a white person, we ran away. And now look, we're sitting together and talking because we're friends.
Are you happy to be working on the sea?
I need to work
The
on his
sea is
mouth.
like a blessing for us. Today I've managed to buy my own equipment so I can go fishing whenever I want. It makes it possible for me to earn money, support my family, and send my children to school. If someone's sick, I can look after them. In the end, I think that fishing is much better than farming palm nuts. That's why
This is
I
a good
wanted
one.
to teach my eldest son the fishing trade. Of course, he can spend time on other activities, but I think it's good that he's learning the fishing trade. Because there'll come a time when I'll be old. Then he'll have to take over and go out to sea to provide for the whole family.
And you, Manuel, would you like to have the same life as your dad?
Why you gotta ask him like that?
It's
Why
my
you gotta set
father's
him up?
job, so I'm happy to learn, and I'm working hard at it. But I find the life of a fisherman really hard. In the future, I'd like to have a job that's not so hard. I'm about to do my finado to become an adult. Then we'll see.
Why that dude gotta set him up like
Okay.
that?
I think it's cooked. We can eat now.
White man trying to start some drama, to be honest. That's how it is. That's
Help
what it's
yourself.
given.
Use your fingers. Do you like it?
Yeah.
A small campfire and good fish. See? This is where we Bisago get our strength. Look at my arms. Feel those.
Why did I do
This
this?
is
I'm
all
so
from the
small like
fish.
that.
It's time to ask more of our browser. Hey Copilot, adjust all these recipes for 7 guests and combine them into one cooking schedule.
That's too
Also
much.
add-
You want to have
Here's
you
a
want
cooking
Google to do
schedule
too
scale
much.
for
They
7
want
guests,
cyber
and
slaves.
also milk free.
They want cyber slaves. That's what I say. They can have black people as slaves no more.
Orango
They
is
can't
the
have us.
archipelago's largest island.
So they're trying to make cyber slaves.
It's a
That's what it's
sanctuary for flora and fauna, and a sacred place for the Bisego people.
I freaking suck at this smile, man.
Look, Mark.
Man,
this
I
is
suck.
hippopotamus dung. Hippos come here often. At night, they come out of the water to eat grass. This time of year, they spend more time in freshwater lakes than in the sea. But that's only true during the rainy season. The rest of the year, from February to July, there's no water in the lakes because it's too hot. As a result, the hippos live in the sea, in salt water.
So this is the road between the lake and the sea.
Yes.
The sea hippos that live on the island are the last remaining specimens in West Africa. They play an important role in Bisego cosmogony. They're a symbol of strength and bravery. Where are they now?
Over there. Look, there they are.
Behind the tree? Oh yes, I see them now.
I think hippos are
Like
so
this?
fucking cool.
Amazing. And that makes them want to come.
It's to call the hippos. We use this technique to wake them up.
How's that looking, chat? Is that looking okay?
Look, they're awake now. See? He's getting up. Look.
Yes, I see. He's right there.
There aren't many hippos left. It's not like it used to be. It's because the locals used to eat them. The herds were chased away by people who wanted to eat their meat. But today, it's forbidden to kill them, so they all gather here in the freshwater lake.
Hippopotamuses, manatees, and dugongs are now protected, along with all the rest
Not
of the
dugongs.
archipelago's flora and fauna. The Bisegos Islands have been made a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But long before humans ever lived here, it was the green turtles that made Orango a sacred place.
You see these? They're turtle tracks.
Great. Is it heading for the sea?
Yes, look, it's heading for the water.
Can I pick it up?
Yes, go ahead, it won't hurt you.
Come, I'll take you to the sea. Careful.
Put it there.
Should I put it down here?
Yes, it'll wait for a wave to reach the sea.
Here comes a wave. There it is. Awesome.
It's happy. Go, go, go!
Extraordinary.
It's thanks to our simple lifestyle, close to nature, that we've been able to live like this for so long, away from everything. But things are changing fast. We see fewer fish than in the past, and fewer turtles because of foreign fishermen. That's why we have to protect them so they don't disappear. I want my grandchildren to be able to see baby turtles heading out to sea.
The Bisagos archipelago is still a refuge for Beto and his people today. It enables them to preserve their culture and look to the future while preserving their sacred bond with nature.
Not the heartbreaking story.
Chapter 6. Modern. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Atlas Archives. Tonight we're venturing to Guinea-Bissau, a small West African nation that proves size has absolutely nothing to do with the complexity of a country's story. Nestled between Senegal and Guinea on the Atlantic coast, Guinea-Bissau is roughly the size of Taiwan, yet its history unfolds like an intricate tapestry woven from ancient kingdoms, Portuguese colonial intrigue, revolutionary liberation struggles, and modern challenges that would make a soap opera writer weep with envy. Tonight, we'll journey through time and space to discover how this seemingly quiet corner of Africa became home to matriarchal island societies, brilliant military strategists who outmaneuvered European colonial powers, and a people whose resilience could power a small generator if properly harnessed. If you find yourself getting lost in this story, then trust me, it's easy to do. Hit that subscribe button so you won't miss our future adventures. The world is full of incredible places, with even more incredible stories, and your support helps us keep telling them. So grab your favorite blanket, settle into that perfect spot, and let's begin our gentle exploration of Guinea-Bissau, where every island has a tale, and every tale has a twist. Chapter 1: The Land Between Waters. Picture, if you will, a place where the ocean doesn't simply meet the shore, but rather braids itself into the very fabric of the land, creating a tapestry so intricate that it's sometimes difficult to tell where water ends and earth begins. Guinea-Bissau occupies 36,125 square kilometers of West African coastline, making it roughly the size of Switzerland, though infinitely more watery and decidedly less mountainous. It's the kind of place
It's the
where
teeth that are
photographers
fucking
probably
me up.
developed chronic headaches trying to draw accurate maps, because frankly, the coastline seems to have been designed by someone with a particularly artistic interpretation of what a border should look like. Nestled between the chronic less mountainous, it's the kind of place where cartographers probably developed chronic headaches trying to draw accurate maps, because frankly, the coastline seems to have been designed by someone with a particularly artistic interpretation of what a border should look like. Nestled between Senegal to the north and Guinea to the east and south, Guinea-Bissau faces the vast Atlantic Ocean to the west, its shoreline stretching for 350 kilometers of deeply indented coast that looks as though the ocean spent centuries playfully nibbling at the edges of the continent. The country added Bissau to its name after independence in 1974, borrowing from its capital city to avoid confusion with its neighbor Guinea, which had the audacity to claim the name first when it gained independence rather like living in a neighbourhood where everyone insists on naming their house the cottage and then acting surprised when the mail gets mixed up. What makes Guinea-Bissau truly exceptional isn't just its modest size or its serpentine coastline, but rather its crown jewel, the Bijagos Archipelago, a collection of 88 islands scattered across the Atlantic like emeralds dropped from a giant's jewellery box. These islands, stretching across 100 kilometres of ocean, form the only active deltaic archipelago on Africa's Atlantic coast, and one of the few such formations in the entire world. 23 of these islands are inhabited year-round.
I'm trying to find something
Though the
good
term
for a marker,
inhabited
for like a
should be
eraser.
understood loosely, as some have populations smaller than a typical university lecture hall. The archipelago was formed from the ancient deltas of the Giba and Grande de Buba rivers, now mostly submerged beneath rising sea levels that transformed what were once river mouths into a maritime wonderland. Orango, the largest island at 272 square kilometres, hosts the country's only national park and serves as a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful places on Earth are also the most difficult
They
to
don't
reach.
have no pictures of
The
them.
isolation of these islands has preserved both extraordinary biodiversity and traditional culture, with some islands remaining sacred spaces where modern development is restricted not by government regulation, but by indigenous customs that predate any written law. In 2025, UNESCO recognized the exceptional nature of this marine ecosystem by designating the coastal and marine ecosystems of the Bijagos Archipelago as a World Heritage
Why don't they
Site.
have no pictures though?
The archipelago supports over 870,000 migratory shorebirds, because apparently word has gotten out in the avian community that the Bijagos offer some of the finest beachfront real estate in West Africa. The islands also serve as nesting grounds for endangered green and leatherback turtles, who have presumably not yet received the memo about rising sea levels and continue to treat Poilau Island as one of the world's premier turtle maternity wards. The mainland of Guinea-Bissau presents a geography that can only be described as emphatically horizontal. Almost the entire country is low-lying, with the highest point reaching a modest 277 metres at a place called Dongle Ronde, which sounds like it should be a character in a fantasy novel, but is actually just a hill that happens to be taller than everything else around it. This low-lying topography has profound consequences. Tidal waters reach as far as 100 kilometres inland, meaning that twice daily the Atlantic Ocean essentially borrows large portions of the country for a few hours before politely returning them. The southeastern region features the Fouta Djallon Plateau, which rises approximately 180 metres above sea level and represents the country's modest attempt at mountainous terrain. The plateau extends from neighbouring Guinea and forms what geographers diplomatically describe as slightly elevated terrain, which is rather like describing a giraffe as somewhat tall. The Bowie Hills extend westward from the Fouta Djallon toward the Korubal Basin, creating a landscape that undulates gently across the country like a vast green blanket that someone has carelessly rumpled. Perhaps no feature defines Guinea-Bissau's geography more dramatically than its mangrove forests, which cover approximately 8% of the national territory and form one of West Africa's most extensive mangrove systems. These tidal forests line rivers and coasts, creating otherworldly landscapes that change dramatically with each tidal cycle. The mangrove's twisted roots rise above high tide levels like the fingers of ancient spirits reaching toward the sky, creating nurseries for fish, habitat for the endangered West African manatee, and natural barriers against coastal erosion. During high tide, approximately 10% of Guinea-Bissau's coastal land disappears beneath the waves, a phenomenon that would be deeply concerning in most countries, but here is simply Tuesday. This regular submersion causes extensive salt deposits to accumulate in the soil of the coastal plain, leading to the construction of numerous anti-salt dams along the Atlantic coast. It's an ongoing battle between human engineering and natural forces, with the ocean playing the role of a persistent neighbor who keeps borrowing things and forgetting to return them. The country's river system reads like a geography textbook written by someone with a poetic sensibility. 6 major rivers drain Guinea-Bissau, each with its own character and challenges. The Cachot flows near the northern border with Senegal and is also known as Farine for part of its course, because apparently one name wasn't enough for a river that spans multiple regions. The Mansoa flows from the center of the country and empties into the Atlantic near Bissau, while the Geba originates in Senegal and bisects the country with the watery highway connecting interior plains to coastal estuaries. The Korubil River meanders close to the southern border with Guinea, followed by the Cassine along the actual border, and finally the Rio Grande, which, despite its Spanish-sounding name, flows through this Portuguese-speaking nation with apparent linguistic confidence. These rivers provide the principal means of transportation in a country where roads are suggestions rather than guarantees, and where the distinction between navigable waterway and flooded field often depends entirely on the season and one's definition of navigable. The coastal area presents a dense network of drowned valleys called rias, which sounds like a geological term invented by someone who spent too much time staring at aerial photographs of deeply indented coastlines. These rias create a shoreline so complex that it resembles a fractal pattern, with inlets leading to smaller inlets, which lead to even smaller inlets, until you begin to suspect that the ocean is simply showing off its ability to create infinite variations on the theme of water meets land. Guinea-Bissau's climate follows the familiar West African pattern of wet and dry seasons, though with its own distinctive maritime twist. The tropical climate means temperatures remain remarkably stable year-round, averaging around 26.3 degrees Celsius, because apparently the weather in Guinea-Bissau subscribes to the philosophy that consistency is key. The rainy season runs from June to November, bringing southwesterly monsoon winds and enough precipitation to transform the landscape into a maze of waterways and flooded plains. During the dry season from December to May, Harmattan winds blow from the northeast, carrying dust from the Sahara and creating the kind of dry, hazy conditions that make distant objects shimmer like mirages. The capital city of Bissau receives an average of 2,024 millimeters of rainfall annually, though this precipitation is almost entirely concentrated during the rainy months, creating a climate where you're either very wet or very dry, with little middle ground for meteorological moderation. The archipelago and coastal wetlands support an extraordinary diversity of ecosystems, from mangroves with intertidal zones to palm forests, dry and semi-dry forests, secondary and degraded forests, coastal savanna, sandbanks, and aquatic zones that change character with every tide. This diversity creates habitat for species that exist nowhere else on Earth, including populations of hippopotamuses who have apparently decided that island life suits them, despite being mammals more commonly associated with river systems than oceanic archipelagos. West African manatees drift through the tidal channels like gentle underwater ambassadors, sharing their watery realm with bottlenose dolphins, who presumably appreciate the abundance of fish nurseries created by the mangrove systems. Nile crocodiles patrol the rivers and estuaries, serving as apex predators in a system where the boundary between fresh and salt water shifts twice daily with the tides. This geographic complexity has shaped not only the natural environment, but also human settlement patterns throughout Guinea-Bissau's history. Most large urban centers cluster along the coastline, taking advantage of access to both maritime resources and river transportation networks. The interior remains sparsely populated, partly due to seasonal flooding that transforms vast areas into temporary lakes, and partly because coastal communities have historically found the sea more reliable than the land for both sustenance and commerce. The population of approximately 2 million people is distributed across 8 administrative regions, plus population density averaging around 56 people per square kilometre. However, this figure is misleading, as population distribution is far from uniform. Rural areas may have fewer inhabitants per square kilometre than some office buildings, while Bissau houses nearly 400,000 people in a relatively compact urban area that serves as the country's political, economic, and cultural centre. Ethnically, Guinea-Bissau represents one of West Africa's most diverse societies, with over 20 distinct ethnic groups calling the country home. The Balante people comprise about 30% of the population and are concentrated in the southern coastal regions, while the Fula and Mandinka-speaking peoples make up approximately 43% combined and live primarily in the north and northeast. The Papel people, at 7%, inhabit the central coastal areas, while the Manjaco, at 14%, occupy both central and northern coastal regions. This ethnic diversity is reflected in the linguistic landscape, where Portuguese serves as the official language, despite being spoken as a first language by only 2% of the population, and as a second language by 33%. Guinea-Bissau Creole, or Creole, serves as the national lingua franca, spoken as a first language by 54% of the population and as a second language by 40%. The remainder communicate in various indigenous African languages that reflect the country's position at the intersection of multiple cultural and linguistic traditions. The religious landscape mirrors this diversity, with approximately 50% of the population practicing Islam, 20% Christianity, predominantly Roman Catholicism, and 30% maintaining traditional African spiritual beliefs. However, these categories overlap significantly, as Christianity and Islam in Guinea-Bissau are often enriched with African traditional elements, creating a unique religious syncretism where saints' days might be celebrated with traditional drumming and masked dances, and where Islamic practices incorporate ancestral veneration and animistic elements. As we prepare to delve deeper into Guinea-Bissau's fascinating history, it's worth pausing to appreciate the profound influence that geography has exerted on every aspect of life in this remarkable nation. The interplay between land and sea, the rhythm of tides and seasons, the abundance of islands and rivers, all have shaped not just where people live and how they make their living, but how they understand their place in the world and their relationship with the natural environment that surrounds them. Tomorrow, as you wake and perhaps wonder about the strange dreams that visited you in the night, remember this place where the ocean borrows the land twice daily, where islands drift in the Atlantic like scattered
I'm sorry that
jewels,
there's like
and where
creaking.
the distinction between water and earth is far more flexible than most geography textbooks would lead you to believe. Guinea-Bissau exists as a reminder that the world still contains places where human communities have learned to live, not in opposition to their environment, but in harmony with its rhythms and cycles, creating a way of life that is both ancient and remarkably adapted to one of the planet's most dynamic and challenging landscapes. And with that gentle thought, let your mind drift like the tides toward the peaceful shores of sleep, while our journey together continues in the morning light, when we shall explore the ancient roots and early peoples who first learned to call this watery paradise home. Chapter 2: Ancient Roots and Early Peoples. Long before European ships appeared on the distant horizon of the Atlantic, the lands that would become Guinea-Bissau pulsed with the rhythms of human civilization. Archaeological evidence suggests that this corner of West Africa has been continuously inhabited for over a millennium, hosting a succession of communities who learned to thrive in the challenging yet rewarding environment where rivers meet the sea. The earliest inhabitants were hunter-gatherers who arrived around 1000 CE, drawn perhaps by the abundance of marine resources and the relative security offered by the mangrove-fringed coastline. These first residents evolved into decentralized animist agricultural communities who discovered that the tidal rivers and coastal wetlands offered ideal conditions for rice cultivation. They developed sophisticated iron implements specifically designed for working the waterlogged soils, becoming some of the earliest practitioners of mangrove swamp rice farming in West Africa. This agricultural innovation would prove crucial as it allowed communities to flourish in areas that might have seemed unsuitable for farming to peoples from drier regions. The relationship between these early farmers and their aquatic environment was intimate and complex, requiring detailed knowledge of tidal patterns, soil salinity, and seasonal flooding that would be passed down through generations. By the 10th to 14th centuries CE, a remarkable migration was taking place across West Africa. The Balanta people, whose name translates to those who resist in Mandinka, began arriving in small groups from what their oral traditions describe as the eastern regions, possibly modern-day Sudan. Recent genetic studies have revealed fascinating evidence supporting these migration stories, with some Balanta samples containing haplogroups M1 and U6, which are typically associated with North Africa, East Africa, and the Middle East. Even more intriguingly, certain Balanta genetic markers match exclusively with Sudanese and Moroccan sequences, suggesting a complex migration pattern that may have involved a Cushitic group traveling westward approximately 2,000 years ago. The Balanta brought with them agricultural expertise centered around upland crops like millet, sorghum, and yams, but they proved remarkably adaptable to their new coastal environment. Once they reached the mangrove frontier, they transformed into what scholars describe as deep rural people, embracing an isolationist approach that allowed them to maintain their cultural identity while developing new agricultural techniques suited to their watery new home. They became masters of mangrove swamp rice cultivation, a skill that would define their cultural identity for centuries to come, even as their initiation ceremonies continue to feature millet and sorghum divination rituals that recalled their upland origins. The Balanta social organization was fascinatingly egalitarian, built around councils of elders who made collective decisions through consensus rather than hierarchical command. To join these councils, men had to undergo the Fanado ceremony, an intense initiation ritual that took place in sacred woods over a period of 2 months. The Fanado was not merely a rite of passage, but a transformative ordeal that tested the physical, mental, and spiritual fortitude of young men. Those who survived emerged as Lante Ndang, brave and wise, distinguished by bright red hats that marked their new status as full members of adult society capable of participating in village governance. The secrecy surrounding the Fanado was absolute. Everything connected to the ritual was burned after completion, and the details were guarded so jealously that mothers learned the fate of their sons only when the survivors returned to the village. This emphasis on secrecy and collective initiation created strong bonds among age groups and reinforced the egalitarian values that made the Balanta notoriously difficult for outsiders to govern. Portuguese colonialists would later discover that the Balanta's decentralized decision-making and collective resistance to authority made them nearly impossible to control through traditional colonial methods. In the 13th century, the political landscape of the region underwent a dramatic transformation with the expansion of the Mali Empire under Sundiata Keita. Mali's General Tiramakan Traoré led military campaigns westward, conquering Senegambia in what oral traditions describe as a punitive expedition against the Wolof king for insulting Sundiata. This conquest extended Mali's influence south of the Gambia River into the Casamance region, initiating a significant migration of Mandinka people into what is now Guinea-Bissau. By the 14th century, much of the region was administered by Mali through a provincial system that established Kabo as a powerful secondary kingdom. The empire maintained control through local rulers called pharaohs, whose responsibility was to ensure law and order while guaranteeing the flow of tributary goods and soldiers to the imperial center. Gold, manufactured goods, ideas, and administrative practices moved in the opposite direction, creating a dynamic economic and cultural exchange network. The Kingdom of Kabu emerged as something truly remarkable in West African political history. Initially established as a Mali province, it gradually evolved into an independent federation of kingdoms that would become the era's most powerful Western Mandinka state. Kabu's ruling class consisted of elite warriors known as the Nyancho, who traced their patrilineal lineage directly to Tiramakan Traore, and thus claimed legitimacy through their connection to Mali's founding military campaigns. This warrior aristocracy created a sophisticated political system that balanced centralized authority with local autonomy, allowing diverse ethnic groups to maintain their cultural practices while participating in a larger political framework. The Nyancho developed a complex feudal system that differed significantly from European models. Local communities retained considerable autonomy in daily affairs while contributing to collective defense and regional trade networks. The kingdom's capital at Kansala became a major political and commercial center, hosting elaborate ceremonies that reinforced the political hierarchy while celebrating the cultural diversity of Kabu's constituent peoples. The kingdom's tolerance for ethnic and religious diversity was remarkable for its time, allowing Islamic, Christian, and traditional animist practices to coexist within its borders. Parallel to these mainland political developments, the Bijagos archipelago was evolving its own unique civilization. The islands attracted settlers from various ethnic backgrounds, but isolation and environmental challenges shaped these diverse groups into something extraordinary. The Bidyogo people, who developed one of West Africa's most distinctive cultural systems. Archaeological evidence suggests that the islands were first settled around 9000 BCE, making them among the oldest continuously inhabited areas in the region, though the specific ethnic identity of the Bidyogo likely emerged later through the blending of multiple migration waves. The Bidyogo creation myth provides fascinating insight into how they understood their social organization. According to legend, the creator god Mundo first made Orango Island as the world, then created a man and woman named Akapakama. She bore 4 daughters, Orakuma, Ominka, Ogubane, and Oraga, who became the founders of the 4 clans that would organize Bidyogo society. Each clan received specific responsibilities and privileges. Orakuma managed land and religious ceremonies, including the right to carve the sacred Iran statues that housed ancestral spirits. Ominka controlled the sea and fishing rights. Oraga received dominion over nature, fields, and palm trees, while Ogubane was granted power over rain and wind, controlling the seasonal cycles that governed island life. This mythological framework supported what many observers have described as a matriarchal or matrilineal society, though recent scholarly analysis suggests the reality was more complex. While women undoubtedly held significant power in Bidyogo culture, choosing their husbands, owning houses, managing family resources, and serving as spiritual intermediaries. Some researchers argue that closer examination reveals underlying patriarchal structures that coexisted with female authority in specific domains. The truth likely lies somewhere between these interpretations, with gender roles being more fluid and context-dependent than either purely matriarchal or patriarchal models would suggest. What is certain is that Bidyogo women exercised remarkable authority by the standards of most neighboring societies. They initiated courtship, managed household economies, participated actively in legal proceedings, and served as priestesses in religious ceremonies. Houses passed from mother to daughter, meaning that men moved into their wives' homes upon marriage, and children belonged to their mother's clan. In cases of divorce, fathers had no automatic rights over their children, a practice that reversed typical West African patterns. This female authority was reinforced through spiritual beliefs that positioned women as conduits for communication with the ancestral realm. The Bidyogo developed sophisticated naval capabilities that made them formidable players in regional politics and trade. Their large ocean-going canoes, called almadiyas, could carry up to 70 people and were capable of long-distance voyages that connected the islands with mainland communities and other coastal societies. These vessels were more than transportation. They were symbols of Bidyogo technological innovation and maritime mastery that allowed a relatively small island population to project power far beyond their archipelago. In pre-European times, the Bijagos Islands served as a crucial hub in West African coastal trade networks. The islanders' naval expertise and strategic location made them indispensable intermediaries who controlled access to interior trade routes. They developed diplomatic relationships with mainland kingdoms while maintaining their independence through military strength and geographic isolation. This position allowed them to accumulate wealth and political influence that far exceeded what their small population might otherwise have commanded. The artistic traditions of the Bidyogo reflected their unique cultural synthesis and spiritual beliefs. They created distinctive portable ancestor shrines called Iran, which served as focal points for communication with deceased family members and clan spirits. Their zoomorphic masks, representing animals like sharks, stingrays, and bulls, were used in elaborate ceremonies that marked important transitions in individual and community life. The famous Vaca Bruto ceremonies featured masks representing wild bulls and served as tests of courage and spiritual power for young men seeking to prove their readiness for adult responsibilities. These art forms served as repositories of cultural knowledge and spiritual power, with specialized skills passed down through specific lineages. The finished pieces were believed to contain the spiritual essence of the animals or ancestors they represented, while variations from island to island reflected local histories and traditions. Religious practices among the early peoples were predominantly animist, centering on beliefs that natural objects, places, and creatures possess spiritual essence. Sacred groves, rivers, and islands served as sites for communion with ancestral spirits and nature deities. These spiritual traditions created strong environmental consciousness, as disturbing sacred sites was believed to invite supernatural retribution that could affect entire communities. Coastal peoples developed particularly sophisticated integration of spiritual and ecological knowledge, encoding their understanding of seasonal patterns, animal behaviors, and plant cycles in religious calendars and ritual practices. Trade networks facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies across the region. Salt from coastal evaporation pans was traded inland for iron tools and agricultural products, while exotic goods from distant regions passed through local markets. These networks also spread innovations like ironworking techniques and maritime technologies, while languages borrowed words and concepts from each other, creating the linguistic diversity that would later ease the adoption of trade languages. The agricultural innovations developed by these early peoples created lasting impact. Mastery of mangrove swamp rice cultivation allowed communities to thrive in challenging environments, creating food surpluses that supported population growth and craft specialization, while establishing Guinea-Bissau as an important rice-producing region in West African trade networks. By the 15th century, when European explorers began arriving, they encountered sophisticated civilizations with complex political systems, advanced agricultural techniques, and extensive trade networks. The Kingdom of Kabu controlled the mainland through its feudal system. The Bidyogo maintained their maritime empire, and coastal peoples had developed specialized expertise in everything from ironworking to salt production. These societies were dynamic and adaptable, constantly evolving in response to changing circumstances while maintaining core cultural values. They had experienced centuries of migration, conquest, and cultural exchange that prepared them for the challenges European contact would bring. Their sophisticated environmental understanding, complex social institutions, and proven adaptability would serve them well in the turbulent centuries ahead. The legacy of these ancient peoples continues to shape modern Guinea-Bissau. The Balanta remain the largest ethnic group and maintain many traditional practices, including rice cultivation techniques still used today. The Bidyogo continue to inhabit their ancestral islands, preserving cultural traditions that have survived centuries of external pressure. Political traditions established by Kabu influence contemporary approaches to governance, while early agricultural innovations continue to support rural livelihoods. Understanding these ancient roots helps explain many aspects of contemporary Guinea-Bissau. The country's ethnic diversity reflects centuries of migration and cultural blending. The strength of traditional authorities alongside modern political institutions echoes flexible pre-colonial political systems. The sophisticated environmental knowledge of rural communities draws on centuries of accumulated wisdom about living sustainably in challenging ecosystems. Most importantly, the resilience and adaptability that characterize Guinea-Bissau's peoples today are traits forged through centuries of managing change while preserving cultural identity. As we prepare to explore how Portuguese contact transformed these societies, it's important to remember that European arrival marked not the beginning of Guinea-Bissau's history, but a new chapter in a long story. The societies Europeans encountered were not passive recipients of foreign influence, but active agents with their own strategies for managing change. Their responses to colonial pressure would be shaped by centuries of experience and adaptation, while maintaining cultural continuity. Chapter 3: The Portuguese Colonial Period. In 1455, the Atlantic horizon that had stretched unbroken for millennia suddenly sprouted white sails belonging to vessels that would forever alter the trajectory of Guinea-Bissau's history. The first European to reach the region was Alvise Cadamosto, a Venetian explorer working for Portuguese Prince Henry the Navigator, who arrived with his characteristic Italian flair for both adventure and commerce. He was followed in 1456 by Portuguese explorer Diogo Gomes, who demonstrated the Portuguese talent for claiming everything they could see and several things they couldn't, and later by Flemish explorer Eustache de la Fosse, proving that news of promising new lands travelled faster in the 15th century than modern internet rumours. These early encounters were markedly different from the dramatic conquest narratives
What
that
do you guys think?
characterized European expansion elsewhere. The Portuguese, despite their impressive maritime technology and undeniable courage, found themselves facing sophisticated African societies that were neither impressed by European pretensions nor inclined to surrender their autonomy to foreign visitors. The Kingdom of Kabu controlled much of the interior through its complex feudal system. The Bidyogo commanded the seas from their island strongholds, and coastal peoples like the Balante had perfected the art of organized resistance that would frustrate Portuguese ambitions for centuries. The early Portuguese presence consisted primarily of trading posts established along navigable rivers, with the most important settlements developing at Cacheu, Bissau, and Guinara. These weren't colonies in the modern sense, but rather precarious commercial outposts that existed at the sufferance of local rulers who controlled access to food, water, and trade routes. The Portuguese quickly learned that success in Guinea required diplomacy rather than domination, negotiation rather than conquest, and the wisdom to understand that they were junior partners in a complex regional economy that had functioned perfectly well without European participation. Perhaps no group embodied the peculiar nature of early Portuguese colonialism better than the Lançados, whose name literally translates to those who were thrown out. These were Portuguese settlers, traders, exiles, and adventurers who had been cast adrift by circumstances and found themselves washing up on African shores like human flotsam. Many were new Christians or crypto-Jews fleeing the Portuguese Inquisition. Others were criminals seeking refuge beyond the reach of Portuguese law. And some were simply ambitious merchants willing to risk everything for the promise of African gold and spices. The lançados ignored official Portuguese trade regulations with the same enthusiasm that teenagers ignore parental advice, establishing clandestine networks for trading weapons, spices, and slaves that operated entirely outside royal oversight. This black market infuriated the Portuguese crown, which discovered that collecting taxes from people who had deliberately placed themselves beyond governmental reach was rather like trying to tax the wind. The lançados married African women from local ruling families, thereby securing protection and trading relationships that worked to everyone's advantage except the Portuguese treasuries. These mixed marriages created a new social category, the Tangamaus, people of mixed African and European descent who served as crucial intermediaries between the two worlds. The Tangamaus were often bilingual and bicultural, growing up with feet firmly planted in both African and European societies, which made them invaluable as translators, diplomats, and commercial agents. They functioned as living bridges between civilizations, though they also represented Portuguese colonial control's fundamental weakness, the need to rely on people whose primary loyalty was to local rather than imperial interests. The slave trade that developed in Guinea-Bissau was both extensive and complex, involving not just Portuguese merchants but African rulers, Arab traders, and eventually English, French, and Dutch competitors who recognized the region's strategic importance. Unlike the brutal plantation systems that developed elsewhere, the slave trade in Guinea operated through existing African political structures, with local rulers determining who could be enslaved and under what circumstances. The Bijagos Islands, with their powerful navy and strategic location, became major suppliers of captives taken in raids against mainland communities. Slaves were captured through various mechanisms that revealed the complex social dynamics of the region. Some were taken as punishment for law breaking. Others sold themselves or relatives during famines. Many were kidnapped by raiders, both African and European, and significant numbers were prisoners of war from the constant conflicts between different kingdoms and ethnic groups. The Grumaites, African mercenaries who worked for European traders, drove bound groups of captives called koffels to coastal barracoons at Cachet, Bissau, and Bolama, where Tangamaus negotiated prices and handled the logistics of human commerce. The market at Cachot developed into one of West Africa's major slave ports, handling thousands of captives annually who were destined primarily for Cape Verde's plantation economy and eventually for Brazil and the Caribbean. Cape Verde became a crucial intermediary in this trade, serving as both a collection point for slaves and a source of the panos textiles that became standard currency throughout the region. These cloth strips, woven from slave-produced cotton and dyed with slave-gathered indigo, created a regional economy that was literally woven from human suffering. From 1580 to 1640, during the period of Iberian Union when Spain controlled Portugal, thousands of Guinea-Bissauan slaves were shipped annually to Spanish colonies in the Americas. The scale was staggering. Guinea alone exported approximately 3,000 people per year during this period, representing not just individual tragedies, but the systematic disruption of entire communities and the transfer of human resources that might have supported African development to European colonial projects thousands of miles away. The social impact of the slave trade extended far beyond the immediate victims. Wars between different ethnic groups increasingly resembled organized hunting expeditions designed to capture people for sale rather than conflicts over territory or political power. Every ethnic group in the region participated except the Balanta and Jola, who maintained their fierce independence partly through their decentralized deserved reputation for organized resistance that made attacking them more trouble than the potential profits justified. Portuguese control remained tenuous throughout the early colonial period, consisting more of influence than authority and more of negotiation than domination. When Portuguese Captain Major was captured and killed by the local king in the early 1700s, the Portuguese simply abandoned Bissau and retreated to Cacheu, not returning until the 1750s. This pattern of advance and retreat, presence and absence, characterized Portuguese colonialism in Guinea-Bissau for centuries, and demonstrated that European technological advantages meant little without local political support. The Kingdom of Bissau, founded according to oral tradition by the son of the King of Quinara, who moved to the area with his pregnant sister and 6 wives, proved particularly resistant to Portuguese pressure. The kingdom successfully defended its sovereignty against repeated Portuguese pacification campaigns, defeating Portuguese forces in 1891, 1894, and 1904 with a consistency that must have been deeply embarrassing to European military pride. These victories demonstrated that African societies were perfectly capable of adopting and adapting European military technologies while maintaining their political independence. The late 18th and early 19th centuries brought new challenges as European powers began competing more aggressively for African territories. The British briefly attempted to establish a foothold on Bolama Island in the 1790s, though they abandoned the effort in 1793 when they discovered that holding territory required more commitment than claiming it. The French pressured Portuguese boundaries from the north and eventually succeeded in gaining control over the valuable Casamance region in 1886, demonstrating that even European colonialism was subject to competition and that Portuguese claims meant little without the power to enforce them. The Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885 fundamentally changed the rules of African colonization by introducing the principle of effective occupation. This meant that European powers could no longer simply claim vast territories based on coastal trading posts or theoretical maps, but had to demonstrate actual administrative control over the areas they wanted to possess. For Portugal, this represented both a challenge and an opportunity. A challenge because their control over Guinea-Bissau was largely theoretical, and an opportunity because effective occupation might finally resolve the ambiguous political situation that had persisted for centuries. The Portuguese response to this challenge was Captain João Teixeira Pinto's brutal pacification campaigns conducted from 1913 to 1915. These military operations represented a fundamental shift in Portuguese colonial strategy, from accommodation and negotiation to conquest and subjugation. Teixeira Pinto allied himself with Fula troops under the command of Abdul Injai, a Senegalese fugitive who had assembled a large mercenary army and was willing to work with anyone who could pay for his services. The pacification campaigns were characterized by systematic violence designed to break African resistance through terror rather than conventional warfare. Villages were destroyed, cattle seized, populations displaced, and traditional leaders killed or forced into submission. The campaigns established Portuguese control, but at enormous human cost that brought international criticism and demonstrated the violence inherent in European colonialism, when local accommodation no longer sufficed for imperial ambitions. Even after achieving military victory on the mainland, the Portuguese discovered that the Bijagos Islands presented unique challenges that required additional campaigns in 1917, 1925, and 1936 before they could claim complete control over the archipelago. The islanders' maritime capabilities, intimate knowledge of their complex geography, and fierce determination to maintain independence made them formidable opponents who extracted a high price for every Portuguese victory. The final conquest of the Bijagos in 1936 marked the end of indigenous resistance, but also represented the closing of a historical chapter that had seen African societies successfully resist European expansion for nearly 5 centuries. Portuguese colonial administration that emerged after the pacification campaigns was characteristically bureaucratic, extractive, and paternalistic. Guinea-Bissau was administered jointly with Cape Verde until 1879, then separately as Portuguese Guinea, then redesignated as an overseas province in 1951 in a cosmetic change designed to make colonialism seem more respectable in an era of growing international criticism. These administrative shuffles changed little for ordinary Guineans, who continued to experience colonial rule as taxation without representation, forced labor without compensation, and cultural suppression without explanation. The colonial economy was extractive and underdeveloped, designed to provide raw materials for export rather than support local development. The Portuguese built limited infrastructure, roads, bridges, hospitals, and schools, primarily to facilitate resource extraction. Ground-up production became the primary export, rising from 5,000 tons in 1910 to 20,000 tons in 1925, though profits flowed primarily to Portuguese merchants rather than African farmers. Portuguese rule imposed forced labor systems that were slavery in all but name, requiring Africans to work on infrastructure projects for minimal wages, often paid in goods. The hut tax forced communities into the cash economy by requiring Portuguese currency that could only be obtained through Portuguese employers. This created a colonial economy based on coercion rather than consent, extraction rather than development. Cultural suppression was another hallmark of Portuguese policy, though implemented inconsistently. Traditional religious practices were discouraged but continued in modified forms blending African and Christian elements. Indigenous languages were marginalized in favor of Portuguese, though Creole emerged as a lingua franca, demonstrating Africans' ability to create new cultural forms. The Portuguese disrupted traditional political structures, but never fully replaced them with colonial alternatives that commanded genuine African allegiance. Education under Portuguese rule was limited and designed to create a small class of assimilated Africans who could serve colonial administrative needs. By 1970, only 0.3% of Guineans qualified as assimilated, able to speak Portuguese, literate, and employed. Criteria that excluded virtually the entire African population from full participation in the colonial system. This educational apartheid ensured Portuguese colonialism remained a foreign imposition rather than a system integrating African peoples as equal participants. The colony's strategic importance grew during World War II, when Guinea-Bissau served as a way station for Allied shipping and provided agricultural products for the war effort. Many Africans gained military and political experience while serving in colonial forces, experience that would prove crucial in later independence struggles. The war exposed contradictions of fighting for freedom in Europe while denying it in Africa, contradictions that African intellectuals noted with growing determination to address through organized resistance. By the 1950s, Portuguese colonial rule had achieved administrative control but failed to create political legitimacy, economic development, or cultural integration. The Portuguese had conquered African societies but never learned to govern them in ways that served African interests. This failure would prove fatal when organized nationalism emerged, demonstrating the ultimate weakness of any political system based on force rather than consent. The legacy of Portuguese colonialism in Guinea-Bissau is profound and lasting, creating political, economic, and social patterns that would influence the country long after independence. The extractive economy, weak infrastructure, and political instability that characterized colonial rule would persist into the post-colonial period. Understanding this colonial inheritance is crucial for comprehending both the remarkable achievement of Guinea-Bissau's independence struggle and the enormous difficulties the country has faced in building a stable, prosperous nation from the complex foundations left by Portuguese rule. Chapter 4: The Independence Struggle. In September 1956, 6 young men gathered in a modest house in Bissau to plan what would become one of Africa's most remarkable independence movements. Among them was Amilcar Cabral, a 32-year-old Cape Verdean agronomist who had recently returned from studying in Lisbon, where he had discovered that Portuguese universities were excellent places to learn about both agricultural science and revolution. Also present were his brother, Luis, Aristides Pereira, Fernando Fortes, Julio Almeida, and Elisée Turpin, names that would become legendary in the struggle for freedom, though at the time they probably seemed like an overly optimistic book club discussing very dangerous literature. These founding members established the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, known by its Portuguese acronym PAIGC, with Rafael Barbosa as its first president and Cabral as Secretary General. The party's vision was audacious: to liberate both Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde simultaneously, creating a unified state that would transcend the colonial boundaries imposed by Portuguese administrators who had apparently never consulted the people they were governing about their preferences for national organization. From the outset, the PAIGC demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of both the political challenges they faced and the international context in which their struggle would unfold. Cabral brought unique qualifications to the independence movement. During his studies in Lisbon, he had helped found the Centro de Estudos Africanos, an association of Portuguese-speaking African students, including future Angolan President Agostinho Neto. These relationships would prove crucial as the PAIGC developed international solidarity and theoretical sophistication. Early PAIGC years were characterized by attempts at peaceful political action that demonstrated Portugal's complete unwillingness to consider African perspectives on governance. The party organized workers' strikes and submitted petitions for political rights, but Portuguese colonial authorities viewed African political demands with the same enthusiasm that vampires show for sunshine. Everything changed on August 3rd, 1959, during what became known as the Pidjigiti Massacre. Dock workers in Bissau, supported by the PAIGC, organized a strike demanding better wages and working conditions, requests so reasonable that they should have been uncontroversial. The Portuguese response was to open fire on unarmed demonstrators, killing at least 50 people and wounding several hundred more. This massacre demonstrated Portuguese colonial logic at its most brutal. When faced with reasonable requests for basic human dignity, the appropriate response was apparently mass murder. The Pidjigiti Massacre marked the end of PAIGC faith in peaceful protest and the beginning of their transformation into an armed liberation movement. Cabral and his colleagues concluded that Portuguese colonialism would never
What
be
y'all think about
reformed
my art?
and that independence would have to be won through organized resistance that Portugal could neither ignore nor dismiss. This realization led to a fundamental shift in PAIGC strategy, from political agitation to military preparation, though always within a framework that emphasized political education and popular mobilization over purely military solutions. In 1962, the PAIGC began armed operations with an abortive attack on Portuguese positions, but the real beginning of the Guinea-Bissau War of Independence came on January 23rd, 1963, when PAIGC guerrillas simultaneously attacked Portuguese garrisons at Tite and Catió. These targets were deliberately chosen for their symbolic and strategic value. They were Portuguese bases established in the heart of areas where the PAIGC enjoyed strong popular support, representing Portuguese attempts to maintain control through military occupation rather than political legitimacy. The conflict that followed would last 11 years and earn the designation Portugal's Vietnam for its resemblance to the American experience in Southeast Asia. Like Vietnam, the Guinea-Bissau War featured a colonial power with superior technology and firepower, fighting a guerrilla movement with superior knowledge of local conditions, stronger popular support, and better understanding of the political dimensions of military conflict. The comparison was apt in more ways than Portuguese military planners probably appreciated. The PAIGC's military strategy emphasized political organization over purely military action. Under Cabral's leadership, the party developed liberated zones, areas where Portuguese control had been eliminated and PAIGC authority established. These zones provided safe havens for guerrilla operations, demonstrated the party's capacity for governance, and offered tangible evidence that the independence movement was succeeding. By 1964, the PAIGC was strong enough to hold its first congress inside Guinea-Bissau territory. The Cacicar Congress transformed the party into the de facto government of a substantial portion of Guinea-Bissau and reorganized the military wing into the Revolutionary Armed Forces of the People, or FARP. The basic fighting unit was the Baigrupo, consisting of 2 commandos of 15 men each that could operate independently or in coordination with other units. PAIGC military tactics emphasized mobility, surprise, and careful avoidance of direct confrontation with superior Portuguese forces. The party's fighters operated from Guinea's dense forests, using intimate knowledge of local terrain to mount hit-and-run attacks against Portuguese convoys and isolated garrisons. They avoided urban areas where Portuguese advantages in firepower could be brought to bear, instead focusing on controlling the countryside where most of the population lived. The PAIGC's approach to guerrilla warfare was notable for its restraint and discipline, reflecting Cabral's understanding that independence movements succeed based on their relationship with civilian populations. FARP fighters were forbidden from abusing local communities or taking food without payment. This discipline paid dividends in popular support that sustained the movement through years of struggle. Portuguese military responses followed conventional counterinsurgency doctrine with predictably counterproductive results. Unable to distinguish between guerrilla fighters and civilian supporters, Portuguese forces often responded with indiscriminate bombing campaigns that killed more innocent people than PAIGC fighters, driving more people into the liberation movement. International support came primarily from socialist countries and Pan-African organizations. The Soviet Union provided weapons and military advisors, Cuba sent trainers and medical personnel, and China contributed material support and tactical expertise. Training camps in neighboring Guinea-Conakry provided PAIGC fighters with military instruction combined with political education designed to create revolutionary consciousness. The PAIGC's success in establishing liberated zones allowed the party to implement its vision of post-independent society before formal independence. In areas under party control, the PAIGC established schools, medical clinics, and agricultural cooperatives that provided civilians with concrete evidence of what independence might offer. Education operated under the motto, "All those who know should teach those who don't know," while medical care was provided through roving hospitals supplied with equipment from Sweden and the Soviet Union. The party also established mobile markets that provided rural communities with manufactured goods at lower prices than colonial stores, demonstrating that African-controlled institutions could serve African needs better than colonial systems. Portuguese military efforts to counter PAIGC success included both conventional military operations and more creative approaches that reflected growing Portuguese desperation as the war dragged on. General Antonio de Spinola, who commanded Portuguese forces in Guinea from 1968 to 1973, attempted to combine military pressure with political initiatives designed to undermine PAIGC support. His strategy included programs to improve African living conditions, efforts to win the support of traditional leaders, and attempts to create alternative African political organizations that might compete with the PAIGC. Spinola's Better Guinea program represented Portuguese recognition that military force alone could not defeat the liberation movement, and that some accommodation with African nationalism might be necessary. However, these initiatives were undermined by Portuguese unwillingness to offer meaningful political concessions that might have attracted African support. The fundamental contradiction of trying to maintain colonial control while offering development programs designed to demonstrate the benefits of colonial rule proved impossible to resolve in ways that satisfied either Portuguese or African expectations.
I'm tired.
The most serious blow to the PAIGC came on January 20th, 1973, when Amilcar Cabral was assassinated in Conakry by PAIGC dissidents who were believed to be working with Portuguese agents. Cabral's murder represented not just the loss of the liberation movement's most important leader, but also a betrayal from within that threatened to destroy the unity that had sustained the independence struggle through years of hardship and sacrifice. However, rather than collapse following Cabral's assassination, the PAIGC demonstrated the institutional strength that he had worked to build throughout the liberation struggle. The party purged those involved in the assassination plot, executing about 100 people suspected of complicity, and reorganized under the joint leadership of Aristides Pereira and Luis Cabral, Amilcar's half-brother. Far from weakening the liberation movement, Cabral's martyrdom seemed to strengthen PAIGC's resolve and international support for the independence struggle. In September 1973, less than a year after Cabral's assassination, the PAIGC made one of the most audacious moves in the history of African decolonization by unilaterally declaring Guinea-Bissau's independence. The declaration was made in Medina du Boé, a small town in the southeast of the country near the border with Guinea, demonstrating that the PAIGC controlled enough territory to hold a national assembly and proclaim independence from within the country they were liberating. This unilateral declaration of independence was unprecedented in African decolonization and represented a direct challenge to both Portuguese colonial authority and international diplomatic norms that required colonial powers to grant independence before it could be recognized by other countries. The PAIGC's boldness paid off when the United Nations recognized Guinea-Bissau's independence by a vote of 93 to 7 in November 1973, with Portugal being one of the 7 countries voting against recognition. UN recognition of Guinea-Bissau's independence before Portuguese recognition represented a diplomatic revolution that undermined the entire structure of colonial international law. By recognizing the PAIGC government, the international community was acknowledging that colonial powers
Pop it and top it with
tired,
Kraft
yeah.
Parmesan cheese. Pop it and top it on everything. You can't replace that OG taste.
could not indefinitely postpone decolonization, and that liberation movements with sufficient popular support and territorial control could create legitimate governments, even without colonial permission. This precedent had implications far beyond Guinea-Bissau for liberation movements throughout Africa and the developing world. The final phase of the independence struggle coincided with growing political crisis in Portugal itself, where the costs and unpopularity of the colonial wars in Africa had created conditions for revolutionary change. Portuguese casualties in Guinea-Bissau alone numbered 8,000 by 1972, while the economic costs of maintaining forces in Africa drained resources that Portugal needed for domestic development. More importantly, the colonial wars had created profound disillusionment within the Portuguese military, where younger officers increasingly questioned both the purpose and the conduct of what they saw as unwinnable conflicts. On April 25th, 1974, a group of Portuguese military officers overthrew the Estado Novo dictatorship in what became known as the Carnation Revolution. The new Portuguese government, led by officers who had served in Africa and witnessed the futility of the colonial wars firsthand, quickly moved to end the conflicts in all of Portugal's African territories. Within months of the coup, Portugal was negotiating directly with liberation movements it had previously refused to recognize. On August 26, 1974, Portugal and the PAIGC signed an agreement in Algiers, formally ending the war and recognizing Guinea-Bissau's independence. Portugal agreed to withdraw all its forces by October and to transfer sovereignty to the PAIGC government, making Guinea-Bissau the first Portuguese African colony to achieve independence through armed struggle. The achievement was remarkable considering the enormous disparity in resources between Portugal and the liberation movement, and it demonstrated that well-organized popular movements could defeat even well-equipped colonial powers when they succeeded in winning the battle for legitimacy and popular support. The success of Guinea-Bissau's independence struggle had implications that extended far beyond the borders of this small West African country. For other African liberation movements, particularly in Angola and Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau provided a model of how to combine military action with political organization, international diplomacy, and social development in ways that created sustainable liberation movements capable of both winning independence and governing effectively afterward. The PAIGC's emphasis on education, healthcare, and economic development in the liberated zones offered a template for creating alternative institutions that could replace colonial structures rather than simply inheriting them. This approach to liberation struggle influenced movements throughout Africa and demonstrated that independence could be achieved through building popular alternatives to colonial rule rather than just destroying colonial institutions, without having anything to replace them. For the international community, Guinea-Bissau's successful independence struggle represented a challenge to the entire system of colonial international law and demonstrated that liberation movements with sufficient popular support could create legitimate governments that deserved international recognition even without colonial approval. This precedent contributed to changing international attitudes toward remaining colonial situations throughout Africa and accelerated the process of decolonization across the continent. On September 10, 1974, Guinea-Bissau officially became an independent nation with Luis Cabral as its first president and the PAIGC as the ruling party. The achievement represented the culmination of 18 years of struggle that had transformed a small group of African intellectuals meeting in Bissau into the government of an independent African state. However, independence also marked the beginning of new challenges as the PAIGC attempted to build a unified, prosperous nation from the complex foundations left by centuries of colonial rule and years of liberation struggle. Chapter 5: Post-Independence Challenges. On September 10, 1974, Guinea-Bissau officially became an independent nation, but independence turned out to be rather like winning the lottery and then discovering that the prize was an enormous fixer-upper house with no electricity, crumbling foundations, and a mortgage larger than the gross domestic product of several small countries. Luis Cabral, Amilcar's half-brother, became the first president, inheriting a country where most of the Portuguese colonial administrators had departed with impressive efficiency, taking with them not only their expertise but apparently all the office supplies, spare parts, and institutional memory of how anything actually worked. The immediate challenges facing the new nation was staggering. The independence war had devastated Guinea-Bissau's already limited infrastructure, destroying bridges, roads, and and communication networks that had never been particularly impressive to begin with. Portuguese investment in the colony had focused primarily on extracting wealth rather than building sustainable institutions, leaving behind an economy that was essentially a collection of export crops and trading posts, rather than anything resembling a modern state. Life expectancy was 35 years. Over 90% of the population was illiterate, and rice production had fallen by 70% during the war years, creating a country that could not even feed itself. President Luis Cabral and the PAIGC government embarked on an ambitious socialist transformation program that aimed to create a modern, egalitarian society based on the principles that had guided the liberation struggle. Drawing on support from the Soviet Union, Cuba, China, and Nordic countries, the government launched comprehensive programs to expand education and healthcare.
Trying to write with non-stop pings, swoops, and bops. That's where Grammarly comes in. With an AI chat that helps you meet every moment. See? No sweat. Need your writing to sound more knowledgeable or precise? Or would generated text more everyday? With Grammarly's Humanizer, it's easy to nail just the right tone. No more second guessing, no more wondering, does this sound okay? Sometimes you need to anticipate an audience's response, perhaps from someone important.
Ooh, that's great. Real me loves a solid timeline.
With Grammarly's reader reactions, you can do just that.
And these updates are exactly how we'll deliver.
Solid timeline. Good job.
These tools are just the beginning, because good writing fuels great ideas.
Build infrastructure and develop a planned economy that would serve the needs of the people rather than foreign capitalists. The literacy program, implemented with assistance from Brazilian educator Paulo Freire, attempted to combine basic education with political consciousness raising, while new medical facilities brought healthcare to rural areas that had never seen a doctor. However, the socialist experiment faced enormous obstacles that went beyond the normal challenges of post-colonial development. The PAIGC's vision of uniting Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde into a single state created tensions between the mainland African population and Cape Verdean intellectuals and administrators who were perceived as maintaining colonial patterns of dominance even after independence. These tensions were exacerbated by economic policies that prioritized state control over market mechanisms, creating inefficiencies and shortages that made daily life increasingly difficult for ordinary people who had hoped independence would bring immediate improvements to their living conditions. The planned economy that worked well in the liberated zones during the war proved less effective when applied to an entire country trying to participate in global markets. State control of agriculture led to declining
I might
production,
just fall asleep.
while government monopolies on trade created
I'm
black
gonna stop
market
streaming.
activities that undermined
Alright, good night,
official
guys.
economic policies. The government's emphasis on ideological purity sometimes conflicted with practical needs, as when qualified Portuguese technicians were dismissed for political reasons, even when their expertise